right, it is 5:31 on Wednesday, January 17th, and I would like to call the Mashpee Public School Committee meeting to order. So our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Mashpee Public Schools recognize and honor the many generations of Wampanoag people who live here and have been sustained in this territory for more than 10,000 years. Okay, up next we have a ratification of the agenda for tonight. There is one change, or addition rather, for item 4 for the out-of-state trip to Bridgeport, Connecticut for the robotics. We also have a request from the gymnastics team to attend an out-of-state meet rather, and we can, it's at Rhode Island College, so that will be also up for approval at that time. Any other amendments or changes? Entertain a motion?
I'll make the motion to, with the addition of the gymnastics out-of-state trip report as is. Yep.
Thank you, Matt.
Second.
Thank you, Don. Dan?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
And I am a yes. Okay, thank you. So, up next, said out-of-state trip. We have 2 trips that are being requested. We'll start with the VEX Robotic. Oh, I'm sorry, public comment. I skipped that. I apologize. It's been a day. I apologize. Didn't mean to skip you. Yep, nope, that was all me reading a line too far.
Around how you did things.
Yep, nope, I totally, just making sure people are awake. That's what I'm doing. So just a reminder, 3 minutes, and if you go over and want to submit in writing, you are more than welcome to do so. So let me just get this, and
My grandchild has some learning needs.
Please introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Mary Rose Grady, and I wanted to speak about the special ed budget. My grandchild has some learning needs. Among those needs is the fact that they have dyslexia. They're not alone. According to the Yale Center for Dyslexia and Creativity, approximately 20% of the population is affected by dyslexia, and dyslexia represents 80 to 90% of all those with learning disabilities. It's the most common of all neurocognitive disorders. Educators trained in reading systems specifically designed to teach students with dyslexia, such as Wilson Reading or Orton Gillingham, can help assure success for the dyslexic student. Mashpee schools no longer have any educators certified in any specific program for the student with dyslexia. We first found this out almost 3 years ago. My grandchild's evaluation highlighted the need for the use of an evidence-based reading program for a student with dyslexia. That's when we found out that there were no certified educators for such a program in the Mashpee elementary schools. There used to be, but they've all retired and have never been replaced. It was our understanding at that time that there were educators in the process of getting their certification. We now know this is not happening. My daughter and son-in-law were informed that now, almost 3 years later, there are still no certified educators for any dyslexia program, that it takes time and that it's expensive. You know what? 3 years is plenty of time. And as everyone is aware that the need is there, the money should be readily available in the special ed budget to provide certified program educators for students with dyslexia. Dr. Curley has told me that the money is available. Mr. Switzer has told me that he has no educators presently seeking certification in any evidence-based program for students with dyslexia. The cornerstone of my grandchild's elementary education is passing by without their learning needs being met. The parents have tried to meet these needs at home as much as possible. It's not enough. All of the students in the schools with dyslexia deserve an educator certified in an evidence-based reading program for students with dyslexia. I served on this committee for several years. During that time, I felt that it was important to know of any roadblocks that stood in the path of success for Mashpee students. I fought for money to be increased for our for our school budget. The fights were hard fought, and we justified the increases. I always found that the town supported any efforts we sought as long as we could justify the need. That's why I'm here before you today. If you were not aware that Mashpee schools have a huge deficit in assisting our dyslexic students, I ask that you research the subject and assure that the properly certified educators are put in place ASAP.
Thank you.
3 years,
Yep.
is it 3 minutes?
Yeah. Do you have much more to go?
I have one paragraph.
Okay.
Thank you. 3 years has been plenty of time. It's too long. I'm asking you to please scrutinize the special ed budget before you vote for it. Make sure that this need is addressed immediately. Ask if they recruit a certified specialist from outside the district, if that is our only option right now. Request that our administrators encourage our own educators and suggest for them to seek certification and assist them in doing so. I've always been a staunch defender of Mashpee Public Schools. Please don't give me a reason to stop now. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else for public comment? Okay. All right. Now we will move on to the out-of-state trip for VEX Robotics.
Good evening. Amanda Howe, Mashpee Middle High School, VEX Robotics competition team coach. So I'm here before you to ask you to approve our high school students if they qualify for the Southern New England Regionals VEX Robotics competition. If they qualify, if they will be allowed to travel on February 25th, 26th, and 27th to Bridgeport, Connecticut to compete with 100 other teams from Southern New England at the Total Mortgage Arena. Of the home of the minor league team for the New York Islanders. So it will come at a cost. There are 5 teams that could cost, that could potentially qualify, and it will be $250 registration fee for each. The teams have worked diligently over the last few months to qualify. Matt Davis's daughter is one of them, and they are kids in grades 8 through 12. It will require them missing 2 days of school, which would have to be hopefully an excused absence. But we have engineers that work with our students and can honestly say that what they learn at these competitions and what they do is valuable, especially when it comes to their futures. So I'm asking for approval for them to travel there. Are there questions about the tournament?
Anyone on board?
Do we have a sense of travel, of what that would look like, or transportation for those students?
So in years past, most of the parents all travel with the kids and they drive them themselves. And they stay in hotels with the kids. So we are suggesting there is a block of hotels that have been put aside by the Connecticut school that's hosting the event. And so the hope is that everyone will stay in the same hotel, but it's up to the parents. And then should we need transportation, we would be using possibly our school vans to, myself and our assistant coach to transport students. But most of the time the students transport with their parents and guardians. They stay in hotels with their parents and guardians typically. This is also the tournament that qualifies them for Worlds in Texas, if anyone was concerned with that.
So I had a question for the superintendent in regard to what the policy is in regard to excused absences and what qualifies as an excused absence, because not only are you asking for that, but you're also asking for this to be considered an excused absence. So
we're
just please clarify.
Well, we're actually moving away from the term excused to verified absence. In this case, students would be expected to make up any missed work. It is not, that's the expectation.
So it's
They are on a
verified
school
absence.
event, but it's a verified absence and all work would have to be made up. There's also an expectation that they are in good academic standing to be participating not only in the robotics activity or club or team, but also to participate in this event.
Do we have any other clubs that we do that for?
What do you mean we do, what?
As far as an excuse or a verified absence?
Yeah, I mean, any type of a field trip where kids miss, 5 out of their classes versus the 6th, which is the class that's on the field trip. There are lots of times when students miss. Athletics often is an early dismissal. They might miss period, the last period of the day.
Andrew, from your perspective, missing 3 days, easy to catch up on?
One of them's a Sunday.
Yeah, I was
Oh,
gonna
one
say,
of them.
Yeah,
well,
and so
Okay.
Monday,
Oh,
Tuesday.
so Monday, Tuesday, okay.
I'd say in my experience, it depends on course load, but it has never been an issue for me or any other students that I've met. And teachers are usually very understanding about the circumstances regarding those absences.
Any other questions from the committee? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the high school robotics student competition for Southern New England FEX Robotics Regional Event from February 25th to 27th.
Thank you, Brian.
And I will second.
Thank you, Dan. Any further discussion?
Just one question for the business manager. Where do the funds come for this?
The robotics group has tournaments throughout the course of the year. Their Saturday tournament, they have registration fees, which go towards the cost of this.
Okay, so they have a revolving fund?
Student activity
A
account.
student activity account that draws down for this?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, Dan?
I vote yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes?
And I am also a yes. Good luck.
Thank you all very much. Hopefully we'll come back with some good news.
Fingers
Have a good
crossed.
night.
At least let us know how many qualify before
Okay.
you can, or at least pass it through the super. Good luck to all. All right, the second field trip that is before us is for the gymnastics. There's a college quad gymnastics meet being held at Rhode Island College in Providence. They already have a meet that will be, Superintendent DeBoer, you want to explain this a little?
It's at Spectrum Gym. So the team already has a meet on Saturday at 5:30, which is really on the Massachusetts-Rhode Island border. So the idea was to go earlier on Saturday so that the girls, or team, not necessarily girls, could experience a college-level tri-team meet, and then they would leave there and go back to their meet in Massachusetts at 5:30. They would be traveling Saturday morning. It's not overnight.
So this is not participating, this is just observing?
It's seeing a college-level gymnastics
So it's observing.
meet, yes.
Any other?
And this is a co-op team it's Mashpee, Barnstable, and Falmouth is a combined team.
What's the transportation being provided
2 school vans, our vans.
with?
It says on here, other, not school vans.
Other?
Yeah, they checked off
So they
other,
brought by
and then
2
they
vans.
wrote 2 vans. They didn't check off school vans.
Oh, they are our school vans.
Okay.
With our drivers?
Our coach is driving one van and the Barnstable coach is driving the other van.
And it is for this Saturday,
It
correct?
is, yes, that is
Which is
why,
why it's a last minute
yes, just came to us.
addition to our agenda tonight.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the gymnastics trip as presented.
Okay, thank you, Dan.
I'll second.
Thank you, Matt. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Dan?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
And I also am a yes, so
Yeah, so you signed down there.
enjoy.
I'll take the form.
Hold on one second. Date it. Thank you. All right. Okay, so field trips approved. Moving on to the minutes from January 3rd. Are there any, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Brian. Second.
I will second.
Okay, Dan. Any amendments or any discussion?
There's a little typo of Mr. Rodriguez's name in that first vote.
Yes, there is. Unless he's always had that silent cue and none of us know.
There's a silent period, yes.
Sometimes it's silent.
All right. Okay. Hearing no other amendments. Dan?
I vote yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
And I also am a yes. Okay. Ms. Roxanne, your turn.
I'm Roxanne Mills Brown, the Education Director for the Mashpee Wampanoag Tribe. And I find myself here with my own notes, which is scary, trying to read my own writing. I'm going to kind of give a rundown as to what's gone on with the Education Department and Mashpee School District since the end of November. We actually met via Zoom with representatives from Mashpee, Falmouth, and Barnstable in regard to a job fair that the tribe was sponsoring. We had no takers from Falmouth and Mashpee, I believe, but Barnstable brought a group of about 10 Wampanoag students. And the reason we did this, and it was the first time we did, it was a very well-constructed gathering because it involved transportation of students, identification of interested students. This was particularly a special job fair because it concerned wind energy and all of the resources and opportunities available with that. We invited non-Indian students as well because the job fair was open to the public. In December, we met with seniors. John Hanlon has been informed by 3 seniors from Mashpee Middle High School that they're interested in visiting Haskell. So that's something we're considering. Given past data, what we're going to, I think, require this time is that we introduce these 3 individuals and any others that are interested in traveling like that to do some things within our cultural community and be sure that when they go out and visit, and if they choose to attend Haskell, that they have some wherewithal and understanding of their own people and themselves as well. We have John is currently working with a student on 2 applications for college, one at UMass Dartmouth and one at UMass Boston. In November, the whaling exhibit, which is a beautiful piece of information and history of our tribe, was placed outside the Wampanoag Education Room here at Mashpee Middle High School. During December, P-Town had that exhibit. They ended up coming to Mashpee for a field trip and visiting our museum, the Weedamoo School, and then Renee Pocknet's 7th grade class. They had lunch with Renee's class and had kind of a cultural exchange, and it was really based around the whaling exhibit. It was something that hopefully we'll be able to do again with other districts as well. The exhibit is currently at the Mashpee Wampanoag Community and Government Center. It'll be there for the month of January. Let's see, in March, it'll be at the Falmouth High School from March 2nd to April 4th. There is a scavenger hunt that goes with the exhibit. There are 10 things for students and others to search for. There's also a PowerPoint put together by Ramona Peters, and we're trying to find a way to have something that scrolls so that visitors can kind of go through that while they're at the exhibit without having a presenter there. Let's see. So we have a new Native American Teacher Recruitment Initiative grant. It's for 5 years. We hired Brad Lopes, who's a Quinawampanoag, and I'm hoping you get to meet him next month. And I'm also hoping you get to meet a new Assistant Education Director by then as well. We have some stuff on the burner. Let's see. We have 2 juniors from Mashpee Middle High School in dual enrollment, English classes at Cape Cod Community College, and we hope to work with Elijah on an open house for the WeQ at Quashnet here soon. We've had some illnesses in the office and people out for extended time, so hopefully we'll get that open house underway. Let's see here. So January 29th, Tribal Boys begins. I believe that's Tuesdays and Thursdays after school. Darius Coombs will be the facilitator for that, and he'll also have a youth intern with him, working with him as well, so that the intern also learns culturally appropriate information. Let's see here.
Can you just explain what Tribal Boys is?
Oh, yes, yes.
Thank you.
So Tribal Boys is a group of, right now it's Quashnet students, because we really have a limited bank of contractors and consultants that are culturally competent or that are willing to work, with youth after school. So Darius is the facilitator. And to this point, they're some of the children that have worked on the WeQ in the garden across the way. They had, the first year was last year, I believe it began in January. They have visited the tribal chief. They have visited our sweat lodge, and they've been asked to assist in repairing that sweat lodge. They've learned how to give offerings in prayer, what a sacred fire is. They've done kind of cultural things that our children traditionally grew up learning, and because of the way our society has evolved of late, we have to get their attention because it's everywhere else but where we would like it to be sometime. What will be new is Tribal Girls. That's also beginning at Quashnet. And we have Janelle Carey working with Tootie Coombs. Janelle Carey is a teacher new to Mashpee District. She's Wampanoag, and while she is working with the girls, she and Tootie, she'll also be reintroduced to her culture, working with Tribal Girls on the same types of activities. I do have to say we're using evidence-based curriculum whereby we can interface our own cultural values and activities within that curriculum. It's the white bison. So there's a boys curriculum for like ages 8 to 13, and then there's an adolescent curriculum for both boys and girls. So we really are really committed to developing a written curriculum so that we can replicate and improve upon that year to year. Let's see. We are going to have a February vacation camp. It'll be 4 days because I believe that Monday is Patriots Day, a holiday. I believe that's been put on Facebook already, and we had to duck because we got a stampede of applications already. In the April vacation camp, and I will forward flyers to the principals. There's a glam camp, and from what I understand, it's young girls basketball. And I'm not quite sure how it works because I really haven't been directly involved, but we'll be getting flyers out, like I said, to our parents and to the principals. We also have internships for that week. It's $1,000 for high school age, college age youth to be coaches, mentors during that time, which I think is a pretty good deal. I think that's it. We're working on really organizing, gathering data, having baseline data, and really that's a big focus for us right now is the data piece. We've been really weak with that, and we have some really good people in our office, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the school year. Tabatanamo.
One quick question. I know you mentioned about having something that scrolls through the presentation. Have you thought about like doing a QR code and like maybe a slide per, that way people can scan it with their phone and just
Oh,
like,
for the
sell-
whaling exhibit?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Like
a
if
great idea.
you know what I mean? Like, because a QR code is pretty easy to make, and you could make one per slide, or you could make the entire presentation a QR code, and then just put them strategically throughout the exhibit.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great idea. Thank you.
Anybody else have anything for Ms. Roxanne? Thank you so much. Sounds like there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
A lot of exciting things going on. All right.
I do actually want to recognize and thanks Roxanne also for helping with the principal search, being the representative from the tribe. It is appreciated.
Thank you. I agree. I echo that. Which we're going to get an update on that later, so I'm looking forward to that as well. Andrew, do you have any updates from the Student Advisory Committee?
I have a few.
Okay.
So this is just kind of like band plug. Band concert last night was a success. If you'd like to pop out and see the chorus concert this Thursday, I believe that's at 7. And we are having a fundraiser concert February 10th called Women Rock. It's about all the women in the history of rock. And we do different songs from that. And there will be students from the high school playing in that with professional musicians. So I think that's a cool opportunity. My little tangent over, we're working on backdating all of my notes from the various meetings I've been to onto the website. We'll be uploading that website soon. I believe we'll be putting it in Mr. Boyer's newsletter. Yeah, if you can do that. Okay, because I'd also like parents to be able to see it. That way we get the whole connection.
Agreed.
A little update from seniors. Seniors are starting to hear back from different colleges. I've heard from senior seminar that everything's going well. People are finishing their research papers, getting their senior projects done. And then from school to career, everyone's starting internships, opportunities like that, different courses and stuff to help them in their field. And that is about it. Do you guys have any questions or anything?
I know we're going to come back to you a little later on, so
Okay.
thank you for those updates. And yes, get your tickets to Women Who Rock, because last year's Piano Man concert was pretty awesome. This one, I'm hoping there's going to be some heart. And I've got my wish list.
I'm not saying there isn't.
I want to hear from Women Who Rock, but that's just me.
They did this show at Katuitt Center for the Arts over the summer, so if you happen to see that, you might have a heads up on the set list, but it's going to be amazing.
And it's right around Valentine's Day, so yeah, good date night. Okay, all right. Next, we have a discussion and vote on the fiscal year 2025 budget, which is in our packets, pages 5 through 18. We've heard some public comments about the budget tonight, but we do have to vote to approve, and this is the time when we basically accept what's been presented and kind of make the budget ours as a school committee. So, that being said, I don't know if he wants to kick any discussion off. Superintendent DeBoer, Ash, Finance Director Will. I mean, we reviewed this, and again, we heard some comments tonight about the special education budget. I don't know if anyone wants to look at that. If anyone would like to.
I was just going to say, so on January 3rd was when we did the public hearing on this budget, and I did present the slides. Nothing has changed between that date and today in terms of the bottom line dollar value that we are seeking your approval of. So we're open to any questions that you might have or thoughts.
So I'll make a motion so that we can discuss this formally. I'll make a motion to approve the superintendent's FY25 Mashpee Public School total budget of $241,581 with the school offset choice of $757,228, resulting in a town of Mashpee appropriated budget request of $25,484,353, which is a 4.19% increase over the prior year FY24 budget.
Thank you, Don. I'll take a second.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, so discussion. I have a question, but I'll defer to the committee if anybody else would like to ask their question first. Okay. In regard to the comments we heard tonight, in terms of that, and I don't know if Dr. Curley is here, but
She's
hi,
here.
sorry, you're kind of behind the camera. In terms of the comments tonight, we have the funding, that's correct, for the position that has been asked for. What are we looking at in terms, are the costs for the training? So that's what's covered, and then the curriculum also would be covered. We just are in need of a willing educator to step forward for this extra certification.
It's probably good if Dr. Curley answers.
That's why I was
Is that
there.
right?
That's okay. Sorry.
Hello. Yes, we do have money set aside to train somebody in the Wilson certification program. We've been asking for the last couple of years to get a teacher to step up, and we haven't had any teachers currently that work in the district that are willing to do so. It is a large time commitment, but the district does have money to train the person and for all the appropriate materials that the teacher would need. Last year when we were hiring teachers, we did have an applicant that was certified, so we were hopeful that person would accept the position, but they did not. So back to trying to find somebody in-house who's willing to. But it's always, whenever we're looking to hire staff, we're always looking for any additional certifications that they may have.
In terms of time commitment, what are we looking at?
It's a year-long training,
Okay.
essentially, for somebody. And it would be taking coursework as well as working individually with a student for the training.
What is our plan B? If you can't hire someone and it's been 3 years, what do you do?
Well, if a student needs that service, we can hire outside of the district.
Have we?
We have in the past for students, yes.
Have we this year?
We have not this year.
Did we last year?
Yes.
We did last year. And that's at Quashnet, at Casey Coombs, or
At Mashpee Middle High School.
at the high school?
But it's wherever the need is,
Yes.
based on the IEP and the team's decision.
So I'm sorry.
Well, so do you know offhand how many kids we have that fall within that need?
No, I do not know off the top of my head how many kids fall within that need, but I can find that information out.
If one faculty member is trained, do they then float, or are they specifically trained to grade level? Like, is it like teaching certifications where you're certified for elementary versus middle, high school? Or is it somebody gets trained, they're able to cover K to 12?
So it doesn't really work that way.
Okay.
It's a certification program, so I think there's 6 steps.
Okay.
And so there's a pre-assessment that you do to determine where the student is.
Okay.
And if it's an appropriate tool for that student to use, and then they move through steps until they kind of graduate from the program.
So when the faculty member is trained, they're able to, no matter what level the student is at, are able to adapt a program for that student.
Correct.
Okay.
Besides the time commitment perspective, what are some other vocalized barriers for, I guess, our staff to want to participate in that training?
That's been the only barrier, really, that's been communicated to me directly.
And I'm assuming that, I don't want to make assumptions, but that training time would happen out of the school day or during?
Yeah, I think well, you know what, actually, I don't know if I know the answer to that question. In the past, it's been outside of the school day, but then they'd be working with a particular student during the school day as their kind of trainee.
Can I answer, because I was certified in that program, and so the training can be outside or inside. It really depends on what's being offered from Wilson, from that company, or OG, or whatever company it is that you're looking to get trained in. The work with the student is generally in school, but there are opportunities for the school, for some of the sessions to happen during the school day. It just depends on what the company's offering at the time that we're ready to train someone.
So I guess follow-up question would be, is there an opportunity to, I don't want to use the term incentivize, but to try to curate, that strength from within, and to kind of piggyback off what was previously stated, how do we assess and then how do we look at those out-of-district resources to try to get this need met for the students that are being identified? So I don't know.
I mean, I have thoughts on that. I think it's important to understand that public comment was made, but that's a statement. That's not necessarily all of the information about any student or what the need is. I think, Dr. Curley could certainly talk more generally about what the needs are. And I would argue that I would say that the IEP needs that are on IEPs currently, we are meeting because that's our obligation under the law. However, incentivizing, I love that idea. My only question to the superintendent would be, would that be a contractual conversation that we'd have to consider? And I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, because to piggyback off of that, my thought too was, is that something that, in this building that what do you call them, the education leaders or the
ITLs,
team leaders.
the instructional team leaders, yeah.
The ITLs would be involved in, or I don't want to say department heads, but, would that bump someone up a step? And my instinct is saying, yes, we're getting into a contractual discussion, which
might be something to consider to bring to the table, but
if that does yield results and make someone want, they know they're going to move up a step or something because they get this extra or whatever it is.
I mean, it's probably easier to do a financial incentive, but that does open a door for other scenarios. And then there's not necessarily a guarantee that once fully trained, that staff member would choose to stay in Mashpee. So there's always that risk too, but there's definitely opportunities to explore, and we can do that.
I would just ask Dr. Curley if you could come back to the committee at the next meeting or prior to the next meeting with information regarding just a number of IEPs that would fall within that particular designation in total.
the designation of dyslexia,
Yes, in total, so that we don't jeopardize any
confidentiality. You're getting it there, Mr. Lyons.
I know you'd shoot me down.
I know.
I said it differently.
You have a lot of people probably. Good job. If that's not too difficult, I agree with Mr. Myers, and I think it might be helpful for the committee to have a better understanding of how many students we're looking at that could benefit from trying to really find a faculty member to step up, and what we can do to support that for you, for the students, for the district, because it does sound like it's something beneficial and it's something you've been trying to do anyways. So, how can we, as a committee, support that, I guess? And if we've got it in the budget already and it's something that we don't need to necessarily debate in tonight's vote because it's already there, we're kind of already, I'd say, a good length of the way to that point. It's just, I guess, identifying whatever barriers which we kind of are at.
Thank you.
Thank you for that information, Dr. Curley. All right. Any other questions, comments, discussion on the budget before we?
I think Ashley would like to speak.
Yes.
I just want to let the committee know the motion that Dawn made included the $50,000 of CIP in it, which is for the Chromebook request. That has not been approved by CIP yet, so those have been included in this motion, and I will update you once we know more.
So I don't know whether when you vote on this to not have to vote again, do you capture that fully in your motion and your vote, that it reflects, here's the amount, if we get the 50,000 from CIP, we understand this is the amount we will ask for from the town. If we don't get that, this is the amount. I don't know how you want to word it, but.
I will amend the motion then to add to it that this amount includes the 50,000 that is also included in the CIP request for FY '25. If that request is approved, that amount will be reduced from the appropriation request.
And we need a second on that amendment, please.
I'll second that.
Thank
Do you
you,
want the
Matt.
dollar amount?
It's 50,000.
Yes, do you want the total budget number?
No.
I think that, no, it's, I think that suffices.
50,000.
Yeah. All right, so we have a motion and we have a second. Any further discussion on the amended motion? Okay, hearing none. Dan?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Dawn?
So this is just approving the amendment, so yes.
Yes, this is just, well, I thought it was the whole thing because you amended your motion.
No, you have to approve the amendment
Okay.
through the motion.
So then, okay, so Matt?
Yes.
And I also am a yes. So the motion has been amended.
All right,
So,
I do have a couple comments. So I've looked through and spent quite a bit of time talking with the business manager in regard to, or business director, I guess.
Director of Finance.
Director of Finance. Director of Finance. In regard to the budget, some of the budget assumptions that are included in the FY '25 request. Ultimately, I'm satisfied in total. I do have some places where I think the committee should consider at a subsequent point whether or not there should be some reallocations done. But at this point, I'm satisfied in totality with the budget. But I just wanted to make sure that the committee was aware that subsequently I would be asking the finance subcommittee to take a look at potential reclassifications of certain amounts.
The working group.
yes, the working group.
Yes.
Okay. Any other comments, questions, concerns? All right, hearing none. We have the motion as amended, and we have a second to that motion. So, we're ready to take the vote. Dan?
I vote yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
And I also am a yes. So we have a proposed budget. Okay. Thank you.
This vote will be communicated with the town manager tomorrow per the charter.
Thank you. All right, Dr. Hanscom, you're going to tell us about the 2023 AT performance and MCAS data.
Yes, finally. Thanks for understanding last meeting. I appreciate it. And December, we ended up canceling. So usually I talk to you about this earlier. I'm also going to be working on my slides and those. So if I'm a little bit of a disaster, I apologize. So I'm starting with MCAS. What I'm providing on the slides, and you all have, is are the results. They came out in October. They were made public at the end of September. But that's just a summary for right now. They break it into grades 3 to 8 and then high school. So this first slide is grades 3 to 8. And our goal in our scores is for the first two boxes, exceeding and meeting, to be greater than the state. And for partially meeting and not meeting expectations, we want to be below the state. And we are sort of in the middle. And we've made some improvements since COVID, for sure. In particular, looking at our not meeting expectations has gotten smaller. Those kids went up to partially meeting, which is good. Obviously, now the next step is getting them up to meeting expectations. But we saw an improvement from last year to this year for sure. I'm going to talk about the analysis a little bit later. In grade 10, we did quite well, particularly around English, actually all three areas. We did much better than the state and continue to grow in that area as well. Our not meeting expectations went down for these as well, and they went up into partial. So we still, again, want to move those kids up into meeting. But overall, we're moving in the right direction from COVID, particularly at the high school level. And the places at the elementary level where we're struggling are still great improvements from the year before. So in October, on our full day, we call it data day. I call it like the Super Bowl for me because it's like my favorite day of the whole year. But not everybody shares my joy of data analysis. However, the teams did a phenomenal job looking at the information we had on our kids and planning forward. So the tools we use, we looked at the fall benchmarks for STAR reading and math, which that's STAR reading at the fall benchmark starts in grade 1 and goes to grade 10. And math, starts in K and goes to grade 10. Math starts in grade 1 and goes up to grade 10. The KCC data wall, I'm not showing you because it has student names in it, but it looks at their STAR rating and math. It looks at high frequency words, sight words, phonemic awareness, phonics. There's a whole slew of early literacy components that are assessed. And the data wall, it's a Google sheet that is color-coded, and depending on the scores that go in, it gets color-coded a certain way so we can very quickly look at student growth and progress. We used Open Architects, which is a free tool that I hope to expand into a paid version next year, that we dump our mega files from the state for MCAS and Access, which are the English language education statewide assessments. We dump those into Open Architects, and they provide the most beautiful platform of analysis that I've ever seen. It's so cool. You can disaggregate by anything you want, and to me, it's magic. So this is the second year we've been using Open Architects, and I think the teachers really love it. What I'd love to see next year, and Mr. Maroney, our Director of Technology, is looking at their paid subscriptions, is to be able to put our STAR data into Open Architects to be able to disaggregate that way. Because right now when I have to look for, let's say, the Tribal Education Department needs aggregate data for all Native students' STAR scores, it's really clunky and I sort of have to do it manually. So that's just one example. It would be great to put all of the data we had, including wonders and everything, into one platform, and that's the goal. So that's Open Architects. The other thing is last year they started releasing the questions from MCAS, which was huge because we would look at the data and we would look at the type of question and the standard that the question measured, but we had no idea what the question actually said because they wouldn't release them, and they've started to release them. And that is super helpful too as we do our analysis. The DESA data, that's our social emotional screener that we do 3 times a year. So the folks looked at those results as well. The DESE district profile, which gives us year-over-year analysis, but it also helps us look at our DART districts, which are districts that the department determines are similar in size and sort of makeup. So we use that. And then our AP scores and our longitudinal reports, which I'll talk a little bit more about after. The teams, the PLCs, the professional learning communities, which was either a grade level group at the elementary or a department, they went through a data-driven dialogue process, a protocol where they looked at the facts, they had interpretations and wonderings, implications, and next steps. So it's a really sort of prescriptive protocol that guides the conversation. And really helps them make sense of all the incredible data that we have. So they went through that process, and then the deliverable, they took those next steps and they put that into our problem-solving protocol that we've been using for MTSS since 2015, which came up with hypotheses about, well, why do we think this is the case? And then some interventions we were going to put in place, and then timelines for checking on how those interventions are going. So that was sort of the day. I mean, there's definitely no way that they finished all of that in one day. They continued to work on the data-driven dialogue and the problem-solving protocol in their PLCs. They actually continue, they use that same thing all year in their work. Please feel free to stop me if you have questions, but otherwise I'll keep going. So here's just a few examples of the analysis, what was found, and then the next steps. So you can kind of get more of a sense of what they came up with. So for grade 7 English language arts, they found a strength. A fact was that figurative language, figures of speech, and what they show about character traits or setting, those things were very solid. We were able to dig so far into the MCAS questions to figure that out, which is, we could not do that before. So sorry, I'm getting in my Nada little nerd setting again.
Nerd out.
Though that made us wonder, does the scope and sequence contribute to this strength? So in other words, we teach this right by the MCAS time. Is that why it came out as such a strength? The implications of that were, so let's dig into those units to figure out what is contributing to this strength and the goodness, you know, the good scores that are coming out. And the next steps would be to continue to build on whatever it is we figure out that's causing this across the standards. And then a concern was that tone, context clues, central idea. Those were all areas that we saw were areas of challenge. So are the students annotating enough? And I got to tell you, I took these notes directly from the team, so I haven't, some of this was not my, all of this was not my writing, so I may not be able to tell you exactly what everything they meant, but I wanted you to see what they had done. So really realizing that they're not annotating enough, we need them to be able to use digital tools in order to annotate, not just paper and pencil, because that's what they're asked to do on MCAS. And we need more, we need texts that students can annotate. So it either has to be online so they can do it with digitally, or if it's a novel, we need to have passages from the novel they can write on or whatever.
Can I ask a question
Yeah.
about this one in particular? I guess I'm trying to draw that line between concerns and how annotating, because
So in other words, kids don't understand where they can find the evidence of tone, or what is a context clue, how is that helping me understand, or the central idea. And by annotating itself isn't the issue, it's annotating about those things. So looking and doing a close read of text. Does that make sense?
yes. I guess then following up on that, you know, this is grade 7. Is a correlation between the STAR tests for ELA and the MCAS, are you able to correlate those two? Because I feel like tone, context clues, and central ideas are things that should start way earlier than 7th grade.
They do. This is at a 7th grade level. So in other words, it doesn't mean they've never done tone or they don't understand context clues or central idea, but given 7th grade material and at the level that I mean, I didn't put the standards in here, but there is a specific standard at grade 7 that addresses tone. The implication of what they're writing is that this is based on 7th grade standards. In other words, does that make sense?
It does. I guess I mean, it's a curious connection to me because I feel like tone doesn't necessarily need to annotate. I guess that I'm struggling to.
So are you
thinking
of annotation as like looking at a nonfiction text and then?
I'm thinking of, you know, like you said, finding evidence. Like I feel like context clues are context clues. They're in the context. You know what I mean? Like, and finding them shouldn't be a struggle, I guess, is what my concern is.
And that's, I think it depends. I mean, if you're reading Shakespeare, there's context clues in there, but they're not going to be clear to everybody. If you're reading, you know, Curious George, there's context clues. And I'm not making a joke, actually. I'm saying there's context clues in there that aren't necessarily evident to everybody. But I get what you're saying. Context clues is definitely an elementary sort of term that we use.
And I feel, I guess it's just thinking of it still being a struggle in 7th grade. Like, I guess I just wonder, you know, do we need to look, are we looking further back too to say, are they nailing that skill at the grade levels prior to, so that they're building that skill as they move through, I guess is my question.
So I can answer that by saying, yes, we are looking at that, and I can bring sort of sixth grade work in to sort of, we can have that
Fourth
conversation.
grade, third
Yeah,
grade, yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I didn't for the purposes of this,
Right.
just because I'm giving you
fine.
examples, but I love the question, so thank you.
Just to follow up on that.
Sure.
So are you saying for these specific items, they're struggling with being able to identify them and therefore convey them as notes to an article?
No, not
Or are you
necessarily.
saying that they're struggling in general with being able to take and articulate and summarize an article?
I would say neither. I'm saying they're struggling, it seemed, again, these are from what they presented, that understanding the tone, using context clues appropriately, and finding the central idea was found to be standard-wise challenge for them. Annotation is a tool that can help them do that. So the annotation isn't the goal, it's understanding tone that's the goal. And annotating in a text is how they're going to better understand it, because they're looking, this is what it's saying. They're looking for tone, able to annotate it, say this is tone, and then be able to say this is why. This is the evidence that I see. I highlighted this evidence, or however they annotate. Again, it's a little bit beyond the scope of my day-to-day, but the annotation is the tool to solve the standard that they're not accessing.
So at the 7th grade level, the annotation would be basically a verbatim recitement of what's in the text?
No, that's not annotation. Annotation is marking up evidence or something.
Like
So it
highlighting.
might be, if I'm
Is it
annotating
just
what's,
highlighting, or?
it could be, it could be brackets, it could be,
Writing a note in your own words?
it can be lots of different ways.
However you annotate.
Annotating
whatever your
is
way of
a
annotating
general
is.
term for whatever makes sense for that kid, or for that reader, really. I mean, we all do it too. You can see.
Like digitally highlighting it, or like you got a pen, like being able to like
So
textually.
how does it work with Comcast and, not Comcast, with MCAS? Are they looking at highlighting the
Some of them,
text,
they have,
or
some of the assessments they have to do that on.
they have to highlight the
Some,
text?
but also there are annotation tools in the online platform, the Pearson platform for MCAS, that they are expected to use and also can use as tools. So we want to teach them how to use the tools not on MCAS. So
those
they have a
tools
menu of
require them-
options.
Require them to write, or?
Sometimes, there's so many components to
Andrew,
it.
feel free to chime in since you've actually
Yeah, I know, you
taken, none of us
take
have. Did you take the MCAS? Were you? I was gonna say the rest of us. I
His
don't
version
think
was
took
a
paper.
couple years ago.
I was on the council, can't do that.
MCAS, did you guys take it?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, it started
Right, I
in
guess
2000.
us old people did not take it.
I think it started,
Their version was paper, and they probably annotated
Yeah.
on the side of the paper.
remember we'd give them like the Venn diagram? Oh my
And then when
gosh.
it got mailed in and they came back.
But with the electronic, like, do you have anything you want to add to this? Like,
It's been a
just
few years
to help.
for you.
It's been a few years, but I personally prefer annotating on paper, but that's besides the point. Whenever I look at annotations online, I had a teacher, I forget their name, I'm sorry, but
Miss
they-
Wyatt,
No, it wasn't
Miss Vaughn?
No.
Nah, I was
That's
gonna.
all right. But they taught us how to annotate online, and then after that, it was easier for me because I was able to look at it like, oh, because I had a really hard time understanding tone, and I was able to look at specific things like, oh, this is like sarcasm, this is whatever, so this person's angry. How does that tone affect the author's purpose? How does it affect their ethos, pathos, logos, all those different rhetorical analysis things? So
I'm getting so, I'm gonna cry.
I'd say
I mean-
that I agree with annotating.
I
and
mean, I
that-
think this, knowing this is just an example, I guess I'm just asking from a student perspective, like, developing the online tools, I guess. Is,
that definitely helps me when I got taught that.
sorry.
No, thank you.
Didn't mean the tangent, but I
love it.
that one as the English person too, that kind of struck me as odd that tone and context clues were.
I get that.
Sorry.
No, it's completely what I'm here for, so I'm really glad you're asking questions. Let's talk about math. Grade 3. These are just examples. We have them from every grade level and every content area. So they found that the students were found to be secure around 2 standards that were MD3 and G1, both being more shape-based and visual. And so we implemented and I put this in for you, Dawn. We implemented ST Math as a supplemental mathematics program maybe 4 years ago. I feel like I keep saying COVID was 2 years ago, and now I'm realizing it was 4. So my years might be off. But ST Math it focuses only on non-linguistic mathematics concepts. It's a conceptual math program with no words of any kind. And we really feel strongly, and the evidence shows, that kids are improving on these visual mathematics standards as a result of using this program. So how can we, next steps, modify units to increase visual representation and cues? I would actually say that that's something I'd like to see across the district, but that's an example of a piece of analysis that grade 3 did. And then a concern was looking at they were below the state on multi-digit subtraction and multiplication, which also matches the STAR data that we saw. And is that about automaticity, or is it a concept issue? So they're feeling like they'd like to try increasing fact automaticity. Then their hypothesis is that it will make them more successful with multi-digit subtraction and multiplication. And looking at their next steps is we implemented a new math program this year, so they feel like they're switching from the Reveal Maths practice around automaticity to fact practice to sort of build that up and see if it makes a difference. Again, these are the third grade team can talk about this much better than I can, but that's an example. And then science, I gave you an example of 5th grade, looking at their science STE MCAS. So students are performing evenly across the grade level standards, which is huge because sometimes science and social studies, Mrs. O'Brien and I were just talking about this today, they can get squished in the schedule in such a way that they're not always given the same weight or time or focus as ELA and math. And so what we're discovering is that STEM special, it really helps reinforce the standards across the board. So we'd like to, particularly they looked at earth and space and technology. We'd like to duplicate sort of that process across all the standards in science. And grade 5, STE, measures science skills and standards from 1st grade all the way up. And then grade 8 measures 6, 7, and 8, and then so forth. So this is not just the 5th grade teachers who are in charge of getting the kids where we need them to be. And then again, we see those multi-step word-based questions that require deep thinking were the concern. We've seen that before in mathematics as well. And so we're wondering if it's due to is it the multi-step directions, or is it the complex and deep analysis, or is it both? So we're giving them more opportunities for chart reading, reading passages, making the questions that they're working on in class more complex to tease out what the issue is and hopefully build the skills. Find the context clues. Maybe a little tone. It won't hurt anybody. Little tone.
Bridging together.
Okay, so that was MCAS. Next, I'm going to talk about AP. So I want to see if there are questions on MCAS before I move on.
So one question I have, and staying in line with our DEIB kind of initiatives and work, has any of this information been broken down?
Yes.
Okay.
So I don't show that here because some of it could be identifiable because our ends are so small, but on Open Architects, you can break down by every subgroup. And the first thing, before I opened it for the staff to do in an October day, I do my own district-wide analysis, and then I directed teams which subgroups to look at based on the district analysis that I had done. And so some of the teams, most of the teams, I would say, have disaggregated objectives in their plans as well for groups of kids that we noticed were not doing as well. In other words, it could be gender, it could be disability status, it could be English learners, it could be race or ethnicity. There's a lot of ways we look at it, but yes, that is a huge part of that October day.
Great. Thank you.
Sure.
I'm going to be kind of a pain and ask, or actually, Andrew, do you have anything you want to ask about
No.
Okay, I know.
Wait, if you're not going to be a pain, think of something you want to ask.
I was gonna say, this is kind of your, yeah,
I'm teasing
no,
you.
it's okay. But I know it's your first time kind of seeing the analysis, but, you know, again, if you have comments about any of it, jump right in. Is it possible for us to get a year over year?
Yeah.
On the, I
The
guess-
scores?
Yeah, just because I'm curious, like, I mean, we're seeing, right now what you presented is like the district over the state. And again, you know, science looks great, we're right on par, like you know, obviously there's room for improvement. Math still has me a little, a lot concerned, but I know we just got that new curriculum, so I'm like, all right, we're flipping there, so hopefully that's gonna change. ELA's got me a little, but.
Yeah, so I can give you a year over year for the
I would say
achievement and growth, because I think that will be helpful for you as well.
And it can go, I mean, I'm fine with like year after COVID, like if you want to use COVID as like your.
Yeah, well,
you
we
know,
didn't
like,
take it in 20,
Nope.
so I'd probably start with 21.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I can get you that tomorrow.
Yeah,
actually.
just
Well,
'cause-
I won't be able to
No,
get it
no, no,
tomorrow,
no,
but
it's-
it's very easy to get.
Okay, just because I'd be curious to see that growth
Yes.
that you mentioned, because this doesn't necessarily show it.
Yes.
And I would like to see it personally.
Absolutely. The other piece that, I mean, I'm absolutely going to give to you, but just for anyone out there in the land who's watching, on DESE's website, you can access all years of data under our district profile as well. So
Well,
you
maybe I'll
can,
just do that
no,
instead.
don't, because it's good for me to put it together anyway. You'll see on AP, Don had asked for some new stuff last year that I remembered and put on here. So next year I'm going to remember
Yeah,
this
I
and
just
have
think
it.
it'd be nice, not just for us, but you know, anybody in the public who's looking at the materials as well, I think.
I completely agree.
It just is, it's helpful
Yeah.
for us to make those informed decisions and see if the money we're spending on those curriculum changes are impacting.
Yes.
And sometimes it's interesting to watch the same cohort. So
Yes.
the third, then when they're fourth, you watch that growth of the same the same set of students.
You can run those reports easily too.
So speaking of, so can you include then all cohorts that would have been through 3 through 10th?
Help me understand that question again.
So in your trend line,
Yeah.
start with what would have been grade 3 that is now grade 10, so that I can see the progression.
Probably. That's not going to be tomorrow, but that'll take me a little more time. But yes, we have all that data. That data is all accessible. So yes, we can definitely. You're writing that
That
down.
actually,
All right.
that actually
I
would
do
be-
it.
thank you for expanding that request. I think that actually would be pretty cool to see too.
So I can give you. I'll give you every year's grade 3, and then I'll also give you cohort data of the class of 2024. Where they were in 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. Where they not really. No, because every year, what did grade 3 score is different from
But
what
you're
did
asking
these
for
kids.
the
I'm going to
second
give
one.
both.
I'm asking for the progression. So
And I'm asking for the progression too.
So you don't want every year what did grade 3 score?
No.
You want to see cohorts of kids.
I want to see
Yes.
grade 3, what they did in grade 4, what they did in grade 5.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
seven,
I mean,
eight,
and-
9, 10,
Yeah.
all the way through.
Yes.
Yes.
That is
So-
very easy.
And I
can
think,
see the
And only
progression.
one then, yes.
yeah, I mean, and if it's not too much, maybe then you do, if you could do that 3 through 8.
For each year,
Well,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I have 7 years of this presentation that I can just cut and paste. It's for that piece, so that's done.
Right.
And the cohort is very easy to do. They have reports for it.
Just
so.
because we can then really see data
Mhm.
points of, hey, we switched to this, or hey, we implemented this program, or.
Yes, and we do look at that in our analysis as well.
I'm sure you do.
But no, I never really, I do have on AP, you'll see a little bit more of that, again, based on your questions last year, Dawn.
Well, and particularly, I'm interested because, as we're all aware, that, there was some regression in regard to COVID and the impact of it. And so I expect to see that regression, but I also expect that we're recovering
Right.
from that, and the data should.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I think you'll see
present
that we are, especially in our AP, which I'm excited to
And
talk about.
I also think too that will help in the district's goals of ensuring that, whatever changes are being implemented are actually being effective.
Yes.
Which is my biggest concern, because, seeing 49% of our kids in math are kind of not partially meeting expectations, or a total of, what is that, 670, 74? Or 64 rather? My math right
I know,
now.
I'm like-
Like, why am I trying to do
I'm gonna
math
let you
right
do
now?
that on TV. I'm
Yeah,
gonna-
sure, that's fine. I look at that and I just, I see room for improvement, and again, I know we just changed curriculum, and I know there's things, so it's, I guess, for me, my curiosity is
Yes.
piqued, and I would like to kind of
And one of
see
the things
more.
we did look at that we noticed was that math took a hit, a bigger hit in the first years after COVID and came back sooner. ELA stayed pretty even at the beginning of, like, because of COVID, but the kids who missed those primary years, we're now seeing dips in. So you're gonna actually see, when I get this to you, more growth in math since COVID and more of a dip in ELA, but it's because those foundational skills they missed. So how many of our current second graders or last year's third graders were at home for kindergarten and first grade?
But then to Don's point, if we see the cohorts progression,
Right.
theoretically, we should
That's what's
see
going
that,
to happen.
that change. and
But I
that
think the
shift.
math and English difference is super fascinating to me because math is so, what's the word where it keeps going, it builds on itself.
Progressive?
Yeah, none of those words are what I was thinking. Anyway, nope, but in ELA, if you're missing, you can usually catch up, like the older grades are doing okay in ELA, but if you're missing those phonemic awareness and phonics skills that you never got, your alphabet sort of understanding, it's really hard to pick that up, so.
Well, but I also think too, it's interesting what was, in your examples, I mean, you cite some word problems as being issues, and you talk about non-linguistic math as opposed to, it all ties together in the big picture. So if they don't have the ELA skill set,
yes,
how are they going to answer a science and technology question that is a multi-step word-based question if they can't find what they need to find? So
everything is literacy. Everything in our field in education is literacy. Mary Kate O'Brien will tell you that. It's numeracy, and numeracy is literacy also.
it is just different.
And I just want to caution, like assessing programming and the use of resources based on one data point or one day's testing is not necessarily, we need multiple sources of data when we really do that deep assessment.
Yeah, someone can have a bad day.
Yeah.
I can have all of that.
Well, and also a standardized test is a standardized test.
Yeah, we won't go down that
Yeah.
route right now because I
Yeah.
could get on a soapbox personally. I don't know about the rest of the committee, so.
All right, so onward to advanced placement. So I started with, we were awarded the AP Honor Roll, the bronze level, for our 2023 AP experience. And the next slide, you end up getting, if you're given one of these awards, you get the lowest one of all the 3 categories that you received. But what's awesome is we actually earned silver and platinum on the other 2 categories for AP Honor Roll. So there's 3 categories: college culture, which is the percent of students in a graduating class who took an AP exam at any point in high school, regardless of score. So we scored bronze on that, which is pretty awesome. 60 out of 125 of the graduating class took an AP class at some point in their high school career. Yay.
Class or test, I'm sorry.
Took a test, sorry. But in Mashpee, since the school committee started funding it, every student who takes an AP class takes the AP test, because we want them to have that opportunity. Then the second category, college credit, this is the percentage of students in the graduating class who scored a 3 on any AP exam in high school. So we scored silver on that, which is pretty amazing. 42 out of 125 students scored at least a 3. And I just want to make sure I'm talking, it's students, not tests, yeah. And then finally, college optimization, this is sort of getting the most bang for your buck out of the AP program, is the percentage of students in the graduating class who took 5 or more AP exams in high school, where at least 1 was taken in 9th or 10th grade. The reason that they look for at least 1 to be in 9th or 10th grade is because the College Board really wants schools to start spreading out the AP experience so that kids aren't taking 12 APs between 11th and 12th grade. And so we had 18% or 23 out of 125 students that met that, which is platinum. That's the highest ranking you can get from the College Board on that characteristic. So overall, we were really proud of the work that we put in. And I have to say, Mr. Mercado, before he left the district, was very instrumental in sort of moving us towards increasing our AP offerings. And we moved into pre-AP under sort of working with him. So the teachers were really behind it, the kids are really behind it, and I'd love, before I go on to the scores, for Andrew to just talk a little bit about your experiences with AP in terms of
So, my personal experience with APs has been very helpful. I've used a lot when applying to colleges. I'll talk to college and be like, hey, what does this program need? What do I have? And I think just overall, the AP experience really, it prepares you for college without having you jump right into that college experience, because you'll be able to get the college experience of getting a lecture and then doing your work, but you also have the availability of a high school teacher and the down-to-earthness of a high school teacher. So I think that AP is a very, very valuable learning opportunity, even if you don't score well. It's not always about the test, it's about what you learned. And even if you score poorly on a test, the colleges will see that you took that harder class and that you challenged yourself, and they will recognize that in their decision. And I also know, just from my experience talking to other students and just seeing other people taking APs, the amount of people taking APs and like the diversity of people taking APs has definitely gone up in my experience. More people that like haven't taken APs before are taking them, and I feel like we're starting to build a community that really supports AP students and helps them in their experience.
We did not plan any of this, but I just want to be clear, you didn't even know I was going to ask you to talk. One of the things so we've looked at two ways to look at AP. When you all started to fund this, we had to sort of think about, and our goals are really both, but you're looking at increasing access and increasing scores. And we started really with access. So in other words, there's an AP potential report that we run every year where it's based on PSATs, and all of our 10th graders take the PSATs. The district funds that. And so the report tells us which kids have the potential, according to these scores, to do well on an AP test. They have no idea who these kids are, what their grades are, or anything. And so we look at that list, and it's not the list of the kids that had been taking AP necessarily. There's a ton of kids on there who no one had really ever thought of would be someone who would access an AP test. We now, in the last 2 years, have started having personal conversations with these kids. We pick the person that is most aligned with the student, and they sit down. It might be a guidance counselor, it might be me, it might be, it could be a history teacher, it could be anyone, and say, hey, this report shows that this might be a really good fit for you. What do you think? And sometimes they're like, oh, no way, I could never do that. But more often than not, the student is so proud and sort of surprised that someone is calling them out on this in such a positive way that they jump into the class. And so you'll see when I go through the access, the number of kids who have taken AP tests, it has gone up significantly since you started funding them. The other side is the scoring. And so yes, we want access, but we also want to see our scores where we want them. And I think you'll be pleased to see sort of where we've fallen with that as well. Did you want to say something though? Did I cut you off?
I did. No,
Sorry.
You didn't cut me off at all. I would like to say thank you for supporting and funding, because I definitely would not have been able to take the amount of APs that I would have if I had to pay for all of them. And I know that's the same with a lot of students.
Yes, definitely. Okay, so this chart, and you have it in front of you, so I'm sorry. Some of these are screenshots that I could only get through screenshotting, so it's a little difficult to see. But this one shows the total number of students with scores 3 and higher, and it is a longitudinal chart, the bar graph on the left. So you started funding them in 2020, and that is you decided in 2019, but it was for the 2020 exam. So the kids who were signed up here, 65% of the kids who signed up in 2020 did not know that they were going to be funded. We sent them, Sherry wrote all the checks out and sent them rebates, like, I can't think of the word, is it rebate? Reimbursements, thank you, for what the parents had paid for. The reason I say that is because that was a normal year of threes. In other words, those were the kids who were taking. Then in 21, the threes went down. This was the first year that we had that open enrollment piece where every kid who took an AP, took the test, was funded by the district. And the 3 or higher, which you remember 3 is what they consider passing, went to, I can't see that, I need my glasses, 51?
50. No, it's
50%. And then last year, 49% scored 3 or higher. And that, I think, Mr. Myers, was your question about like, well, we're paying for it, is it worth it? You know, and you can see that in 2023, we're back up to 62% of the students who took the AP exam last year scored a 3 or higher. Pre you guys paying for it numbers. In addition, the total number of AP students went up, not only the number of students, but the number of exams significantly. So that chart on the right tells you how many students there were that took AP exams, how many exams per year, and then how many with 3 or higher and the percentage. So you can see that in 2020, there were 116 AP students, 202 exams given, 75 students got 3 or higher, and 64% were 3 or higher. And then you come over to 21 and 22, and those are lower numbers, except the number of kids who took it went up. Finally, in 23, we went back to 117 AP students, 246 exams. So that's a huge increase in the number of exams taken. And 61% of them, or 72, scored 3 or higher. Go ahead.
So, just a methodology question then. So the 72 represents that there were 72 unique exams where a student scored 3?
No, 72 out of the 117 students.
So if a student took 3 exams, because it looks like students are taking more than 1 exam, does that mean that they scored 3 or better on all of the exams?
That is not what it's saying. It's on at least one. Yes, at least one, which is what it said in 2020 before you were spending the money on this as well. So did you?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember from 2020, were they taking that remotely?
Yeah, they took it remotely.
Yeah, because I remember the kids had to take it.
Which is why 19 is on here too, because 19 was the last sort of real year where you weren't paying for it and it was taken normally. And those scores are the same, basically, between 19 and 20.
In 21, they went back to the normal way, or did they remain?
They were not home for 21.
Yeah, they did it at home.
They were, no.
No, in 20, they did it at home.
2020, they took it at home. 2021, they took it at school. I hate, it's so hard when you're saying 2020 or 2021, like it's confusing. All right. The next slide is the totals for each score. So each assessment, you can score a 1, a 2, a 3, or a 4, or a 5. So this is for 2023. The number of exams that were given, that were scored at each level is the first row, the percentage of total exams, and then the number of AP students. So I'm not gonna, oh, what did I do? No, I did that on mine, sorry. 2 screens is too many. I'm not gonna, I just wanted to give you sort of the breakdown by score as well. The next slide is each assessment that was given in 2023. And again, I'm not gonna spend time reading each one. You can look at that yourself, but I wanted you to have access to the information that made those numbers on those sort of aggregate charts. The one thing I will highlight, sorry, let me go back, is Physics 1 during 2023. No one passed. All of the kids got 1s. And I want to highlight that we didn't have a physics teacher. That was the personnel issue where physics teacher left in October-ish. We had a long-term sub come in. They went on to virtual high school physics, AP physics, and it was just the best, they worked really hard, but they were not given the same opportunity for success as they are this year with Mr. McMurray teaching physics. Are you in physics?
No.
No.
But I do have something.
Yes, please do.
I would also like to say that AP scores are compared to every other student in the nation and the world that takes it. So in physics that year, it was like someone that had less of a proper teacher compared to someone that had a teacher full year round that has that college education to like may have taught at college. Yeah. Sorry.
And no, but I can show, if we go back into 2022's physics scores, they're just like the other scores that we have. They're not failing.
Can you explain the psychology anomaly?
Psychology, this was the first year we offered AP psychology. So it was open to everyone. And I think some kids didn't necessarily know what they were getting into in terms of psychology sounded like a class that they were interested in, but the sort of rigor of AP, they weren't necessarily prepared for. The teacher, Miss Celeste Reynolds was the teacher of it. She did go and get trained from the College Board in how to teach the course. And she's also taught she teaches AP Human. And so she's wonderful, but it was her first time teaching it as well. But I really think it was it sounded different from how it was, that would be my guess. I shouldn't say that's definite.
One other question.
Yeah,
if I may.
please.
U.S. history. So that's the one that starts, most freshmen take it. It's a freshman, sophomore experience. We're kind of seeing
So this is the last year of the change. So it used to be until 2019 that kids took AP Human or World History in 9th, and then APUSH 1, APUSH in 10th, APUSH 2 in 11th, or US 1 and 2. But the history and social sciences frameworks were reauthored in 2018. So in 2019, we flipped our scope and sequence as a result of it. What you're seeing is the last of the old scope and sequence. So you have a combination of kids who may have taken, some of them were in their second year of AP US. Some of them took AP US 1, then had to go into AP Human, and then, or US or World, then went back into AP.
Oh, they were split.
Yes, because of when the standards changed and how their schedules worked. So I meant to highlight that, so thank you for bringing that up.
Any other questions on this piece?
Okay.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I'm trying to remember what these are because I wrote them in October. So I just, this is, so the College Board provides us with additional data analysis tools. So this is the instructional report. This is an example of the instructional report for, I don't remember which test this is. Let's see if I wrote it somewhere else.
10 students total.
Oh, it looks like, AP Lang. You were in that class. Well, it doesn't say your name, I promise. So this is 11th grade AP Lang, AP Language. And so the instructional reports, I'm just giving you a screenshot of what they look like. You look at your group, you compare it to the Massachusetts group and the global group. So Andrew was referencing how they're compared to scores across the world. Our students scored a mean score of 3.6, Massachusetts students 2.95, and global 2.8. And then you can see the percentage of scores that are 3 or higher and compare them that way as well. So that's a tool that was used on our day-to-day and also in our PLCs. Then the group distribution, you can also compare to the Massachusetts and the world. And then here, I love this one. This breaks down the questions, and you can see how our kids did on particular standards and questions compared to Massachusetts and the world. So it's really actionable for our AP teachers to be able to look at this data and then consider how they're adjusting their practice in subsequent years. Again, this is just an example that I gave you of AP Lang, but we have it for all of our classes. our AP classes. So the next steps, we want to continue to focus on both increasing our access and improving scores. I don't think it's one or the other. I think it's both. And I think we're showing, the trend is showing that both have really improved over the time since you all put this in place. The use of the AP Potential Report, I cannot articulate enough how powerful that is and how amazing those conversations have been. And then those personal invitations from teachers. So one of the things we changed last year during scheduling is that, and I know I'm going on, so I'm really sorry, but is that students, it used to be that teachers gave recommendations for students' course selection prior to students doing it. And what we discovered in our student advisory council and sort of just start living up there the year before was sometimes kids would feel obligated to sort of go with that recommendation. So we flipped it last year to students and parents first have the first pass at scheduling. It's a paper that they go through and they pick what they want and the parent signs off. That goes to the teacher who then makes their recommendation and then the kids schedule themselves in Power School. Just that alone, it requires teachers to have personal conversations with kids if they're recommending a higher level or a different level from what the kid chose from themselves. And as a result, we saw more kids go into higher level classes. And that's what we want to see.
And the implementation of those meetings with guidance will help facilitate that discussion even further?
Yes, so on January 30th at the middle high school is Program of Studies night for families, so please come. I don't remember, what time is it at, 6? It's at a time in the evening that Sherry will tell me. But during that day, they're using that day as a program of studies day for the students. So the students are going to rotate around the departments. It's at 5:30, families. The students are going to rotate around the departments and hear about the classes that are available from each department and have those conversations. There will also be a station where students sit with their guidance counselors and go through that MyCap that we talked about to plan.
And they'll be doing more than just that one MyCap?
Yes.
Okay.
They're going to do, the MyCap will be every, is it twice a year? Yes. In addition, we add.
Sorry, before you go on. It's twice a year formally, but if a student wants to discuss, they're always welcome.
Yes.
Just again, for clarification, you can always make an appointment with your guidance counselor.
And to be fair to the guidance counselors, they are meeting with students on this all the time. We just realized there wasn't a formal mechanism in place to capture that. But yes, students should reach out to their guidance counselors whenever. We added this year pre-AP programming for pre-AP English during this year. One of the things that we are adjusting for next year is the pre-AP English 1 and 2, which is grades 9 and 10. We had college prep and then we had pre-AP. And what the English teachers were finding was that there was too much of a gap between the two. At the same time, College Board came out and said, hey, pre-AP is now open source. Anyone who wants to use it can use it. So we're going back to calling it English 9 honors and English 10 honors, but it's going to be a conglomeration of the pre-AP curriculum with some of the literature stuff that we've been missing from the pre-AP curriculum. But that's designed to prepare kids for the rigor of an AP course. So we're excited to see what the data shows us there. We're reworking the scope and sequence to look at using those item analyses to say, oh, historically this has been an area of concern for us, this standard. We're going to move it to April so that it's right before the test and it's fresh in their minds, kind of a thing. The AP teachers have a monthly PLC that we implemented this year, so they meet once a month just as an AP team to talk about sort of the AP instructional model itself as opposed to content-specific things. And then College Board PD for teachers, including scoring AP tests. So any teacher in Mashpee who is going to teach an AP course, we commit the resources to send them to the full College Board training before they can teach that class. In addition, many of our teachers are asked to score AP exams. So they go off and they score them. And as someone, I used to score the MCAS, it made me the best teacher around MCAS that I could have ever imagined because I knew I could see everything that was coming in, what the students were bringing in and what the scores, what they were looking for. So we have several teachers who do that as well, and that only improves our process. So that's, sorry, a very long-winded piece of information about MCAS and AP.
And that's why next year you can split them, and then it won't be as long.
Happy to do that. I also hopefully won't have, any kid in the hospital next year either, so.
Well, let's avoid that.
How hard would it be to provide a matrix of the, how many students from each of the grades are taking each of the AP classes?
I don't know how hard, but it's doable. Definitely doable. I can do, would you like that?
Yeah, I'm curious to see how many of our seniors are utilizing it versus juniors, et cetera.
Yeah, I would say there are no more freshman opportunities for AP because when we redid the standards for social history and social sciences, AP US went to 11th. Oh, no. AP Human went to 11th. It used to be in grade 9. So the first opportunity for an AP exam for a student in Mashpee High School is 10th grade currently. So I just wanted to make sure that part was clear.
Okay, so for 10, 11, 12,
Yeah,
you could show this.
Of course.
Well, 9th too, because they start AP US history in 9th.
No, but it's
No, but you're looking the tests only?
It's pre-AP, they just split it over two, so it's not actually coded as an AP class.
Okay.
10th grade AP US is the actual AP US class for the purposes of College Board.
Okay, I did it differently.
Me too.
Because
Me
we
too.
did like colonization through, I forget when, and then we started like junior year,
Yes.
like Vietnam and on, or post-World War II and on.
So it is split that way, because I think you
Yeah.
took it, but it's not called an AP class
Huh.
freshman year. That's a College Board thing, that's not our thing. We call it a push one. Don't get me in trouble.
Andrew, do you have any thoughts you want to share on this?
Is there anything you think that
scheduling,
the committee would benefit
sequencing?
from knowing too?
Not that I haven't already said. I think we're very fortunate in this district to have our AP tests paid for, and we have a lot of growth for the different types of APs. I know this year we started AP Mandarin and Culture, which I'm taking, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity that we have as a district to grow our AP selection.
Any other questions for me? Well, thank you for your patience and indulging my excitement.
Thank you for the information.
Thanks for explanations and diverting. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Dr. Curley, we welcome you back.
Look at that. So yeah, my favorite way is just the arrow. But it would be.
I'm just going to sit kind of inside. Hello again. Can you hear me? So the majority of my presentation is going to be around the new IEP, which will be implemented at the start of next school year. And I just want to say a lot of my slides are actually taken from a man, Alan Bloom, who has done some training for the district and is doing training for a lot of districts across the state. So the last time Massachusetts updated their IEP was 2001, so it's been a long time since we've had an update. And it is a new form, so the form looks different, but the process is essentially the same. And there are a lot of similarities between the two. Here's a list of really the basic differences between the old IEP and the new IEP, but I'm going to go through them in more detail in the following slides. So this is what the first page of the 2001 document looks like, where there was a parent and student concern statement, and then student strengths and key evaluations. So any type of updated testing would go in that section. And then the team vision statement would be at the bottom. I do want to add that one of the big differences visually is that the current IEP is portrait, and the updated IEP actually is in landscape, so it's a big visual difference. So this is what the first page of the new IEP looks like. The focus is really on the student concern, as opposed, the parent concern is also considered in there, but the student concern is considered from as early as 3 years old. And then the parent concern as well, and then the vision statement is a response to the child's the child's concern and vision. So the student's strength, what type of disability would also, there wasn't a specific section on the 2001 IEP for the student disability, so a lot of times different districts would do different things, but it would end up in this next section, typically at the bottom. The new IEP actually has up top, right there, what the disabilities are, and so you would check them off. Currently, in Massachusetts, we do primary disability, secondary disability. They're not doing that anymore, just any disability the student has, the box would be checked off. And then another new thing is that English language learners, there's a section in there for students who are English language learners. That is new, we did not have that in the current IEP. And then these boxes down here for any, so the assistive, one of the big differences between the current IEP and the new one is the current IEP has a lot of kind of additional forms that go with the IEP. The new one has all of these components really built into the IEP. So assistive technology was something that may have showed up under one of the PLEP pages is what we called them, or under additional information. The questions are now embedded into the IEP. And then there's how will you include that throughout the IEP, whether it be in the accommodation section, the goal section, or the service delivery. So you will see that bottom checkbox there on a lot of the pages because they want to know how these things are being incorporated into the IEP. So for anybody who's been in an IEP meeting, you hear the staff in the meeting talking a lot about PLEP A and PLEP B. So that's, and there's now those two sections are now into 4 sections broken down, and I'll go through each of them. But now if we were to do acronyms, it would be PLAAFP, which they're not going to do. So there's no more of that. It's just present levels of academic achievement and functional performance. And again, 4 different sections. The first one is academics. Kind of on that first page where I talked about key evaluations, where you put in the updated assessment data, that is going to go onto these 4 different present levels of academic achievement. It's going to go in over the next 4 pages. So it talks about the current performance, strengths and interest areas, and then the impact over in that right-hand column of the disability for the child. So that's really where you're going to get your goal areas from, is that far right column. Alan did it he was much more fancy in the way that he presented it than I am. And I'm also going kind of quick because this was an hour-long presentation. I'm trying to make it more succinct. But again, there's those boxes down the bottom. And that was when I talked about all these different things kind of being incorporated into this IEP, there was an autism checklist that was kind of an additional document where there were 7 questions, and you kind of just attached it. Those questions are now all embedded into the body of the IEP. So this is the second section. So again, that present levels, this is around behavioral, social, and emotional, and the students' needs in that area. And again, the bullying statement used to just kind of fall under additional information. You would discuss it at the meeting, and it would fall under additional information. There's actually a section now for bullying right in the body of the IEP. And then more of those autism-specific related questions there. And then another present levels page on communication. And then the last one is additional areas. So in this section, there is for students with low incidence disabilities, hard of hearing, deaf, and blind. Those sections will be filled up for students that fall into those disability categories. Okay. So this is the post-secondary transition planning form. again, was not part of the current IEP. It was kind of an additional document that you would fill out and attach. It's now embedded in the IEP. It talks about any kind of outside agencies that are helping to support the student. Those would go into this IEP, which is new. A lot of these things are the same. It would be, course of study, what the student needs to do to get there. Here's where the community goes in. Another part that was kind of an additional document was the transfer of rights. When a student is approaching the age of 18, there needs to be an educational decision maker for that student. So the child and the parent work out who it's going to be. Again, it was an additional document. It's now embedded into the IEP. Oh, and then that's more from that. And then there's what's called a 688 referral. 2 years before a student graduates from high school or ages out from high school, you fill out a 688 referral form, which goes to a state agency to help support the student after they graduate. Again, that was an additional, well, you do still have to fill out the additional form, but that information would typically go under additional information. There's now a section for that in the IEP. Modifications and accommodations used to be on those PLEP pages that I referred to earlier. Now there is a page dedicated to accommodations and modifications. This didn't change all that much. This is for MCAS. So it's essentially the same information. It just looks a little bit different because it's that landscape. The goal, focus, current performance level, measurable annual goal, benchmarks, this did change a little bit slightly. So this is what it looks like now. And of course, I can't really read that, but so now they're talking about a goal area. And again, when I referred back to that 3-column page when they were doing key evaluation results, and I said that on the right, that's where the goal areas will come from. That should be the goal areas, moving forward for any goals that the child needs. It talks, they want baseline data in there, and then it's broken down into, annual goal, criteria, method, schedule, and who's responsible. The who's responsible isn't a specific person, but it would be speech language pathologist, special education teacher, and so on. And then the progress reporting information. The service delivery grid looks essentially the same. The one difference they did do is they used to have the service delivery first, and then they would do what's called the non-participation justification statement, which means why is a student being pulled out of class, out of the gen ed classroom. They actually now are going to have, so again, that's the 2001, how it went in order. Now they have the participation in the general ed setting first. So they're assuming, and by law, we are supposed to keep kids in the general ed setting as much as possible. So that is now first, and then comes the service delivery grid after that. Again, it looks essentially the same. The one difference for us who sit in IEP meetings and work in schools, we know Part A is for consultation services for any person who's consulting on the student, goes into that section. B, for any service that happens in the gen ed classroom, that goes in section B. And C is for any service that happens outside of the gen ed classroom. The one difference on this page is that location is now in there as a column to help make it more clear to parents where those services are taking place. This is essentially the same. It talks about just does a student need a longer day, longer year? Do they need specialized transportation? Again, it just looks a little different because it's landscape. I think one of the biggest differences from the old to the new is that there's a separate service delivery grid for ESY, extended school year services. So for students who require extended school year services based on their IEP needs. Everything used to kind of fall into the same service delivery grid, which got a little confusing. So now they have their own service delivery grid for ESY services and ESY transportation. And then essentially the response of the last page, which is that additional information section is still there, but where sometimes it would be this long, there really shouldn't be too much that falls under that additional information section. And then the parent response section, do they accept it? Do they partially reject it? Do they reject it all? And do they request a meeting to discuss the rejected portions? Essentially all the same information is there from before. So again, it's the same IEP, there's new information. A lot of the differences from the old IEP to the new IEP are, everything is incorporated into this one document that went from 8 pages to 16 pages long. Massachusetts is kind of giving out all of the criteria needed. Every district, there's different programs that different districts use. So there's like Power School, which is what we use. There's EastBed. There's a bunch of different programmers out there who are developing what it's going to look like on our, like when we see it up on a computer. So there's going to be a lot of like check boxes and drop downs and whatever. So we need to learn how to navigate that when our software becomes available. So does anybody have any questions about the new IEP document before I move on to the next, just several?
Dr. Curley, can you just clarify, wasn't our district involved with sort of a multi-year process of this?
Yes, but it wasn't really what we thought what it was going to be. So yes and no.
Okay, but we did provide some input.
Yes, we did. We provided the
I
input.
sat on a Zoom meeting. I know we did.
Sitting on some.
No, it was, yes, what we thought we were signing up for was something very different than what we actually, yes, we did a lot of that. Is special education the right service? We provided a lot of, and I think that's what you're referring
Yes.
I remember you referenced that, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Like
provided.
last year or the year
yeah,
before.
The year before, I
Yes,
think.
we provided a lot of feedback into that document. And then I think they gave us literally a 6-week window of trialing a couple of parts of the IEP and giving some feedback on that. So it wasn't very long.
The good parts are all us.
Of course. Question.
So I'm just seeing on your slide here that there's a presentation on this in May. So when is this going to be implemented? Is this for next year?
It is September of '24.
And so everything that's in a kid's current IEP would be transferred by the school over to the new form?
So one of the things that DESE recommended as not, that we would change things as IEPs come up. So if you have an IEP in September, we would move the old IEP into the new IEP at that meeting. So no services will change for any student based on like what they currently have. That will not change whatsoever. And then, so if your IEP meeting isn't until March, that student's IEP won't be written until March under the new document. The old document would stay as until then. But no services would change as a result of the change in the form. Does that answer your question?
So just to clarify, so when the parents and the student have their IEP meeting, say in March of 2024, or
25, yeah.
After that meeting, then the results will be written in the new form and sent to the parent.
That is correct, yeah. So if you were in September, it would be September. If you're March, June, whenever it would be.
Okay.
So we're not going to go switch over all the IEPs. There's really not a way to do that.
Plus everyone's dates would then be aligned exactly the same, and so every time you needed to do one, it would be the same.
Yeah, so,
Yes.
Well, it wouldn't be if you're transferring apples and apples.
It'd still be a lot of
Yeah.
things to
It'd
transfer.
be a lot of work
Yeah.
Yeah.
to do that, but yeah.
yes.
Is the current IEP documentation in Power School?
Yes.
So is the vendor going to help transfer and migrate the
So there's a
information?
lot of questions that we still have that we don't necessarily know the answers to. So I'm not exactly sure how that is going to roll over. But we won't lose the data. I just don't know what it's going to look like. I mean, they're going to have to do something because, for example, the students whose IEPs aren't being switched over until March, we're going to need access to those IEPs to continue to write progress reports and whatnot. So
Right.
I don't know exactly what that's all going to look like. So luckily, we have an amazing IT department that's going to help us with that as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I guess my question would be, given the change in the paperwork, do you see that being like a barrier? Like, are there already certain, challenges to the current 8 pages? Because if I'm a parent and you're telling me it's going from 8 pages to 16 pages,
Yeah.
And it's already overwhelming for people that might not be in this space and have to get the advocates and so on and so forth. So I'd be interested to see once we start rolling it out, like that data. But also at the same time, that's also something. So I think that these are really good events to start introducing this, but the parent orientation, all of that stuff, I think we really need to do a good job at making sure that everyone knows that this is coming. Because change, you know, some people don't really like that, and we have to do it. But I worry more about, you know, the families that have to ultimately do this as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a good point. And what was I going to say to that? I hear you about the 8 to 16, but I think a lot of the papers are the same. It's just now in one document as opposed to getting the 8 pages plus the 2 and the 2 and the 2, so it's all there. And so we'll work with families to kind of explain that. But you know what, and you actually made me think of another idea. I talked a lot about kind of office hours next year for special ed teachers, but maybe even office hours for parents that if they have questions or whatever about anything, we could be kind of helping with that. So thank you for.
And usually, like, not to speak out of turn or anything, but like usually like the team here at the school is really good about like being involved with like the parents and like aiding in the process of filling it out. So you're not ever as a parent feeling like you're alone and like you got to figure out all the answers. Like there's a lot of dialogue between like the staff here. Yeah, they do a really good job.
Andrew, from a student perspective, any comments? Okay. I guess my only question, you kind of touched on it with the IT and, you know, some of the concerns. The patch, for lack of a better term, of the transition to keep the older IEP versus whatever they implement, are we looking at any additional costs? Is that something Power School, in our Power School subscription, I guess you could say, is covered? You know, are we going to be seeing any financial impact to this change where it's something state mandated versus something we just arbitrarily decided we were going to change it?
Yeah, no, and that's a good question too. I did ask Sean Maroney that question, and he did not think there was going to be any additional cost other than what we typically pay.
Okay.
So that could be subject to change, but that's what I had asked him at some point within the last couple of months, and that's what he told me.
Okay. Great. Any other questions?
Okay, so then just a couple of other quick updates. Currently, we are under a tiered focus monitoring review. Every 3 years, we kind of undergo one. This is the B, they call it TFMA, TFMB. We are in B. So it reviews, they're looking at some special education components as well as some civil rights. So Hope and I are working closely together on that. There is a parent orientation tomorrow night virtually at 6 p.m. There was a blast email that went out last Monday, I believe, to all the parents for anybody who wants to attend that meeting. And then their on-site visit will be February 7th. Also, too, I am doing a special education audit to just kind of look at our programming within the district and our resources and what kind of how students are doing and are we doing the best that we can with the resources that we have. So I am doing that not through the state, but just privately, and that will be taking place over the next few months. And then just an update on CPAC. We had our first meeting December 13th, I believe. I had several people show up. 2 of those people are interested in becoming officers of the CPAC, so that's very exciting. And then these are the next 3 meetings that we are having over the course of the year, and I just threw the topics up there. And you had mentioned it, Dawn, but I'll mention it again. On May 8th, we're going to do a presentation on the new IEP for families, so hopefully a lot of people come to that and learn a little bit more.
Is that presentation going to be in person and Zoom or?
We were going to do it in person, but I mean, we could do it Zoom as well.
Just because I know, like, thinking of the needs of some families that may not be able to make it, or, you know, because I know even like sport nights, like.
Or I could also even just record it and post it on the website as well. So that people can.
That'd be awesome. Thank you.
Any questions? No. Thank you, Dr. Curley. That was really informative. Appreciate your time and sharing that information. Hopefully it makes your world a little easier. It looks like it will, so. At least the forms. I mean, it's all in one place.
Yes, it is. It's nice.
It's not 15 different places.
Certain pieces or whatever.
And that's, I think, a good thing.
Yeah.
For the student and the families and the district, yes. Everything's in one place. Okay. Up next, we have an update on the Mashpee Middle High School principal search.
Okay, so last week on Wednesday night and Thursday night, we held interviews. We had a total of 9 applicants. 3 were from out of state. They did not hold a Massachusetts license, so they were sort of put in a second group if we were not successful in finding finalists with the 6 people we interviewed. So the committee ended up being 9 on the interview committee. Our parent ended up having an emergency with one of her children. But luckily, one member of the Mashpee High School staff is also a parent, so he kind of wore both hats. We met ahead of time as a group to look at, and I don't think I brought that folder. We reviewed the survey results and I apologize, I'll bring it next time, in terms of what were the effective communicator was up there. Students are definitely looking for a commitment from the person. Anyway, the committee went over the questions. We had 3 candidates on Wednesday night, and we didn't really discuss any kind of sort of debriefing until the second night. We had 3 more candidates, and so the result was 2 candidates were put forward as finalists. Next Monday, the 22nd, one of the candidates is coming to Mashpee Middle High School. The schedule is the same. The second candidate is coming on Wednesday, the 24th. But from 12:30 to 1:30, they're meeting with the district leadership team. Most of these are geared to be more like conversations and informal interviews. So anyway, that's 12:30 to 1:30 is the district leadership team. 1:30 to 2:15 is a tour of MMHS, which will be students providing that, in addition to probably myself and Dr. Hanscom. 2:20 to 2:50 is conversation of students with the candidate. 3 o'clock to 3:30 is an opportunity for staff to have a conversation and ask questions of the candidate. 3:45 to 4:15 is an opportunity for parents and guardians and community members. And then we will debrief with the candidate, myself and Dr. Hanscom, after that each day. And this week we are reference checking.
Is there a way for parents who might be working during the time of 3:45 to 4:15 to submit questions in advance for someone to ask during that period?
I can put that out there when I make sure that they know about that if they're not able to make it and they'd like to have a question asked, we can definitely have someone ask it. Yeah.
It's a great idea.
You know, just because that time a lot of parents are working. So.
And I think we had a target date of February 2nd would be when someone would be offered the position, so we're running, pretty well on our timeline.
It's because Mrs. DeBoer ran it this time.
No. But we are very happy with both of the candidates that were put forward, so we're hopeful that is a happy resolution for either way.
Andrew?
Yeah, sorry, I had a question. Can I email you with what I am going to put on the website before I put it on there and make sure everything's like okay with you and accurate?
Oh, yeah.
I just want to make sure I'm not like doing anything wrong,
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other?
Any questions about this process?
Okay, thank you. Subcommittee working group updates. It looks like the superintendent evaluation subcommittee had a meeting recently. Brian or Dan, or Superintendent DeBoer, would you like to talk about what you discussed? I believe we've got a folder here.
Yeah, I can just say quickly that the summary sheet that's on the left side of your folder, any of the text after that first cover sheet in red tried to capture some of the input from the working group, or not the working group, the subcommittee. So you can see that there as well. I know we have my goals update a little later on, so it's kind of a mismatch of placement.
Any comments? I mean, from what I see, I like, what the subcommittee has suggested and added here. I don't know if anybody else has any comments or questions, or if the subcommittee wants to add anything.
Well, I'm always talkative, you all know that. I think it was or my perspective, it was a really productive meeting. Superintendent DeBoer really started to show a lot of the evidence of meeting these benchmarks and milestones, and had taken some of our feedback from the first meetings and started to integrate those into obviously what was being presented throughout. It was obviously very open to the additional recommendations that we started to present, so I felt really confident with the overall process and how things are moving forward.
Thank you. All right. Any other questions, comments before we move on? Great. Up next, that was everything for the evaluation, right? The other part of this packet is for your goals, right?
Yeah,
Or
that's
just- okay.
the work, the subcommittee.
So then we're moving on to the vote, or the discussion and vote on school choice, correct?
So yes, we are. Can I share input from our attorney?
Please do.
Okay.
We've been waiting for that, so yes.
Yes, and we looped back and forth a few times to make sure we had it. So she was basically giving me responses to two questions. Can the school committee vote to open more school choice seats mid-year? And that one, she says, on the first question, there is no clear guidance. The governing statute allows for 2 enrollment windows, which we have. The selection process, however, is if there are more applicants than seats, would require the random selection process, which we do. So if the district did have more applicants than seats, you could not fill those seats until the window. It does not seem as if the statute contemplates a situation where the school committee is seeking to add seats mid-semester, as is being discussed here, and there would be complications if the random selection process is required. So it sounds like if you were to, the conversation had to do with reopening and making seats available 9 through 12. We would have to go back to, depending on how many seats you decide to open, if there were students who have since left the district because there was not a seat, we need to make sure they have access to that seat. And if that totaled, and other applicants, because we have to put it back out there publicly, if that exceeded more than the seats you decided, then we still have to do the lottery kind of thing, draw the names.
Okay.
That is the answer to that one. The second one, can there be a preference for students who move out of district? She said, on the second question, please see the attached FAQ from DESE, and it's number 21, so I'm going to read it. If a resident moves from the district but wishes to continue to attend school there, may the district enroll the student through choice? May the district provide this student an admission preference? The answer, provided it participates in school choice, the district may enroll such a student if it follows the same process that it uses for all other non-resident students, including the provisions relating to public notice. The district, however, may not provide an admission preference to this student or admit this student ahead of other students who may wish to be admitted or who are on a wait list. So she goes, based on this response, I do not believe the district could offer any preference to the former Mashpee resident, but could use a school choice seat as long as the normal process is followed.
So, it sounds like we are able to add seats now if we choose. However, we're back to the numbers game of how many we open versus how many are seeking, and if the number seeking surpasses the number we open, we're back to the lottery system. But we are
Seeking or soft?
soft. Sorry, that's true. Yes.
I wasn't being grammatical. I was being.
Yeah, no, you're right. Thank you. So, with that information, now at our in our understanding. Do we have, I don't have my packets from
Enrollment.
before, just the numbers, do we have?
Sherry, can you look up the January 3rd packet with enrollment, that page for the grades 9 through 12 enrollment? Thank you.
But also,
Or Hope can do
before, or what we, because last year we didn't open any, or for this year we didn't open any seats, but what had we opened previous, like,
We never opened 11 or 12, and it was usually around 4 or so at 9 and 10. I don't have exact numbers, but I can say, and Dr. Curley, you can attest to this, we did not take students at grades 11 and 12, I would say, since I've been here, or at least for the past 5 years.
I think last time we voted too, we didn't add any slots to the high school, correct?
Correct. No, for this year, no, you did
Right.
not.
Because that was the recommendation.
So I guess I'm unclear on what the problem is we're trying to solve here.
we had quite a few requests this year. I feel like more than,
What is quite a few?
So part of there's two issues. We did have some people call inquiring about school choice through the phone to Sherry, and they were told we don't have school choice 9 through 12. There's a little unknown factor in that. The other piece of it is students that have been with us whose family situation has changed and they choose to be upfront about that. And so therefore, they no longer live in Mashpee and they can only stay if their choice, and there's no choice until the next window, which would affect them this year. I mean, they could, in past years, more in late spring, situations like that have come before school committee, or I've presented them with just initials, and you've approved a tuition waiver, but generally not at the earlier part of the year, and the situations for at least 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 of those kids, 4 that I know of happened in the fall.
So there's 4 kids that we can identify, some number of kids that we can't identify.
Which if you do vote, we have to re-advertise publicly so that those families, they may choose to reapply, they may wait till the end of this year because it is kind of hard to shift mid-year sometimes. It's very hard. It's harder for non-Mashpee seniors to shift in because we have to make sure they've met all their graduation requirements.
That's why we don't
That's
typically
glitchy.
accept 11 and 12 anyway.
I can understand, yeah, I mean, I can understand 12, 11, I might, but I get it, that I understand. 11, you're usually pretty situated, I would think, in your.
So there's 4 students that you think might be,
I am aware of 3 students who have shifted districts, and I'm aware of 1 who's here, but does not live here anymore.
But that's not the total of who would apply, right?
No, there could be outsiders.
Right.
Yeah, no.
right, but
Those are the knowns.
Those are the knowns, previously Mashpee students.
and the ones, and of those, I guess I'm just trying to think. So they left recently, or they left sometime between now?
1 was early fall.
I think we just want to be careful with confidence.
I know, 1 was early fall.
Yeah,
A couple were later into early December-ish.
okay, so in the last 2 months.
I guess my question is, with the process, like, what's the time frame or the turnaround? Does it have to be posted for so many days? And then it's like, in all reality, it's like, we're getting kind of further and further. I mean, just personally, I feel like we did take a vote, we did talk about it. I mean, I don't mind revisiting it, but if the students have to kind of go into the general population, we have to open up to everyone else. There's no guarantee that those students ultimately would be given a preference at the end of the day, so.
And also, if we did open it up, what's an acceptable number, like, so that we don't pass any thresholds where we're over, like, stretching what our capability is to support.
I mean, this time of year, I wouldn't expect an onslaught of outside applicants necessarily, because this is when most families are looking to make a change for whatever reason. Obviously, you could choose a number that most likely wouldn't lead to a lottery. There would be unfilled seats. We post, I think it's April, for a month, and then we do the first round, and then it's left open another month, and we do the next round if there's still seats in July.
Is April a date we pick, or is that a date that DESE recommends? Is there a timeline established that's?
West Bridgewater opened theirs for next year already. They do it in February. So we did that.
Well, that was my next question.
Yeah,
I mean,
so-
do we start the discussion for next year earlier so those families can start planning and we can get a better sense? I mean, to Brian's point, we are kind of getting farther and farther into the year, and, you know, while some families may jump at the chance to come back, what does that do to their child in terms of, you know, that type of a change and getting caught up in a class that's been going for almost half a year now? Or half
We're
a school
talking
year.
high school. The semester ends next week, the semester.
The half-year point.
That is when all the classes change. That doesn't mean you can't do it another time, but just we would not have it posted and chosen in time for that, if that's helpful.
I mean, you can also decide that where these students were originally counted in our enrollment, I mean, it's up to you whether you want to do the tuition waiver for the balance of this year only, and they would have to apply for school choice for next year, which we do open. The policy says that we have to do the first drawing by July 1st. It actually says it's the first drawing, or two drawings. The first will take place the last week of the current school year, but no later than July 1. I know we tend to do it in June, and then we do the second one after July 1st. And then it says the second will be conducted during the week immediately preceding the opening of the next school year, and will be based on the possibility of unexpected additional openings. Which, that's a hard time to do a second.
Can we?
I might bring that to
But
the
it might be worth
policy.
the policy subcommittee getting together.
Well, the policy subcommittee is getting together very soon, and there is a long list of adjustments to policies.
That's the 5 o'clock one, right?
But I can add this one to it, and we can
Just for the
hash
committee
it
to
out.
consider if there's a better time
Window.
that you want to look at choice so that families can plan earlier too.
Well, I think, too, it might inform our decision on seats if we have a better idea of the interest, you know,
One of the things I loved is that we got kids in April for tours and for the shadow a day, or potentially, or like, it was just really wrapped your arms
That's the
around.
time when families are looking.
So if
to
they
readjust.
decided in March, you know what I mean, they could come visit before they committed. But
And at the high school level, we also do family interviews with every school choice student. So the student and their parent or guardian come, and it's usually myself and the principal, and many times Dr. Curley or Miss Cat sit in on it. And we really like to hear the student voice as to why they're, want to choose Mashpee.
great. All of that being said, Dan, any thoughts? I'm gonna just go down the line, I guess. Any thoughts,
I don't know, I guess hearing all of the feedback and data, I guess I would be in a position to say that we do not touch it for this year, and discuss further down if we want to make alterations to the timeline, but that better understanding.
Brian, do you want to add anything to what you've already shared?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, looking at the options that were kind of given, I would feel more comfortable if they were waiver requests, just because we've done them traditionally in the past. I think that we also took the recommendation from the staff at the time not to inundate and overwhelm some of the staff and the students in the high school. But now, obviously, considering that majority of these students are probably students that came from the high school and were already in that population, I guess for me it's more trying to navigate and figure out how do they continue in those positions. And for a waiver request, it's more by like a case-by-case basis to just say, well, this is a blanket coverage, and we're going to accept 10 more students or something like that. I would just feel more comfortable that way because we're taking it case by case. And I feel like there's also other circumstances, where they might live now, stuff like that. Like, how realistic is it for them to get to school? Because I don't want to see them set up for failure either. If their parents can't, commit to some of that stuff that we need to make sure they're meeting their expectations as well. And that's just, I guess, how I feel.
Thank you. Dawn, do you have any thoughts you'd like to share?
Nothing new. Thank you.
Okay. Matt? No. Okay. All right. Then that being said, I guess it seems the kind of consensus of the committee is to kind of leave it at the moment as is with the waiver. Maybe we will introduce the waiver. If people want to apply for it, we'll hear them on a case-by-case basis as we have in the past. And the policy subcommittee, we asked them to kind of revisit the timeline, specifically, at least in my opinion, and maybe we start collecting those applications a little earlier. Like I know Sturgis, they're taking interest right now too and doing the shadowing and so maybe.
Scheduling's easier too.
And that's, so I think if we start the process sooner, it sounds like we'll be set up a little bit better. Plus, I think if you've got, and Andrew, chime in here, because as a student, when you've got like if we're going to do student shadowing, maybe the seniors who have some extra, you could set that up a little bit better too, because there's a little bit more lead time to get them staggered better.
Yeah, I should say, not every kid who came for school choice came and shadowed, but there were
But it's an
shadow
option
cases,
that, okay. Great. Thank you all for your input and update and opinions on that. So moving on to new business, update to school handbooks. We all have a handout, I believe.
And I sent it virtually yesterday.
Did I?
I sent it yesterday. Also, so, as, I don't think I have it in my file.
Sherry, do you have extras at all? I don't think I got them. I mean, I read it.
Here.
I have it electronically.
Okay.
That handout.
The handbook one.
Well, not.
So as
handbook. I saw
Dr. Curley referenced, we're in the middle of, we're in group B of our tiered focus monitoring cycle. And so one of the components of the process is technical support. So the first week after break, Dr. Curley and I met with our program chair, our review chair, Winnie, who's awesome, by the way. And she she looked at our self-assessment. So our self-assessment was due in May, right? Beginning of May. She looked at it and got back to us this January with some technical assistance on what we'd submitted. What they allow us to do is to, if there are issues, they provide you with the technical assistance. If you can get those issues resolved before they come on site, which they come February 7th, then you don't get a finding, which I think is pretty awesome. So Dr. Curley and I are working on the things that they recommended. There weren't very many, actually, which I was really excited about. But for the handbooks, what she had several things, and they're in the memo of what she was looking for some changes to. As I don't do the handbooks, I'm not a principal, so it's not something I do a ton of. And as I was going through them, I was trying to figure out how I was going to tackle this, because again, it's not my work. What I realized was that our self-assessment was due at the end of last year. We made a bunch of changes to the handbooks that align with the regulations over the summer, and so I did resubmit the new handbooks to her with some of that. But some of the things that are in here are just sort of things that are missing. As I wrote in the email to you, nothing that we're recommending adding to this handbooks nothing's new. It's just taking it from policy and putting it into the student handbooks. So I did not draft any of this language. This is not language that is new for any of you. We just are asking that we put it in to the handbook as they've asked us to. So you can see there's a couple of requests to add words to definitions, and then adding components of either the law or policy into the handbooks around discipline of students with disabilities, and also considering ways in which we're supporting students with disabilities regionally. Actually, Dr. Curley referenced that's going to be in the IEP next time, which is pretty exciting. So, and then adding what our school-wide educational service plan is, that's something that we provide to families. So if a student is suspended, in-school suspension, out of school, long-term, short-term, they're entitled to make academic progress, and families have the right to choose from a menu of options for how they do that. We have this is what we provide them, but we never put it into the handbook, so we're asking to be able to do that. And then the suspension procedures, I said see addendum because I couldn't put it in that chart, it was so long. So again, this is right from our policy, and it's just, they're asking us to put it into the handbooks as well. So that's the dime store version.
One quick question
Yes.
on the school-wide educational service plans. Do you have what Mass General Law, that one? is
That's
referencing?
under the mental health and, I will put it in if you want.
I was just curious,
I
because you
think
referenced the
it's
others.
37 H and a half, and H and 3/4 that requires those. So I'll add that because I
Okay.
have that somewhere else.
Yeah, just because you referenced it and all the others, and I guess I just was,
I think I forgot to cut and paste on that one.
okay.
So yes.
Okay.
And I don't know how to make the little section thing, so I have to cut and paste that too as well.
You need to get your alt command.
I know, I'm not great. I'm doing Duolingo, by the way, and doing just the accent, the accent aigu and the act like is enough for me right now. Okay, MGL,
Any questions?
chapter 71.
Will this be considered policy change or,
That's it.
because it is a handbook? So I guess my question would be, no?
Are you asking if it's a policy change?
Yeah.
No, it's moving, it's
Policies into the handbooks.
approving changes to student handbooks. That's
Yeah, I
what
know,
we're
but-
asking.
You still have to, so would we motion to suspense like the first read and stuff? I guess that's kind of my question, because or is that just for policies? Because it's the first time, right? That we're seeing this,
Yeah,
unless it went
yes.
through another committee? Okay, so then I would make a motion, I guess, to waive the first read.
Is there a
Yeah.
first read of handbooks?
Usually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
perfect,
There
then
is.
yes,
I thought so.
perfect.
I'll send him.
Yeah.
Yes. You're very
So I sit next to this one.
You guys are thank you.
Zoozing into you.
It's just permeating right now.
Yeah.
That's why I can't have term limits on. We need you to. Discussion on the motion to waive the first read. I'll take a vote. Dan?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
I also am a yes, so first read is waived. Okay, so now I guess I'll entertain a motion to approve the changes as presented, just to get to discussion for Don's question.
Motion.
Thank you, and second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Discussion.
So, is the definition of staff also include coaches?
Yes,
It does?
yes.
Okay.
And again, that's not a Mashpee thing, that's a law thing.
Just, okay. I'm not sure that all students would recognize that,
We can certainly have a conversation about how we can better integrate
articulate that.
the bullying policy into our wellness classes and with students and everything, for sure.
Yeah, just.
No,
Yes.
that's a valid point.
No, this plan is only as good as the people who know what it is and
Right.
use it.
Well, just because some of our coaches
Mhm.
are not faculty members.
Well, they are paid by
They are
you.
staff.
Right, they
Yeah.
are staff,
Yeah.
but
Do you think kids know
I was
that,
gonna say, Andrew, do you have any input on this?
I would say that not many. I feel like when kids think about coaches, they don't think of them as staff, but more as people that just help out. So I feel like when they have like an issue with a coach or something, they only go to like the athletic director, and they don't know they have that opportunity to go to like the principal or anything above that to talk about anything that
Concerns.
happens. Yeah.
So maybe at all sports night, that is mandatory.
Yeah.
Right? I do not have an athlete, you can tell. We could include a little blip
think that
about
would be
the staff, and how it's all under the umbrella of Mashpee and under Principal McSweeney or whomever.
Yeah, I think that's important, but to Don's point too, I think in this,
In the handbook.
in the
it should-
handbook, it really needs to be crystal clear because that's also the document the students are signing off on at the beginning of the year as well, saying, I understand that.
So,
In the bullying prevention and intervention plan, I think it has some definitions.
it does.
Does it do that in?
No, and I guess I'm just a little hesitant to change what they told me to add in terms of
I guess,
this addendum. I would love for Sarah, because let me just, if you vote on this today, it's just gonna get attached to the handbooks, and then you're gonna re-vote on the next year's handbooks, and this would all be embedded in it. I'm wondering if it's okay for us to just consider doing a better job educating our kids this year and run it through our attorney lane. I just don't like to change anything that the law or the attorney.
yeah,
tells
I guess
us.
that was my question is staff, is that definition, is that, because it's kind of unclear if it's just in our bullying prevention or if that's the MGL.
No, this is, comes directly from the MGL law, from the law, from MGL Chapter 7137O, which though that is an act to reduce bullying. It came out in 2010.
And in this plan, I know that we incorporated staff as potential bullies in the plan.
And that's what they're asking us to do here. My concern is by adding EGs or whatever it is that you're, right now, I want to get us through the audit with what they told us to put and potentially do a better job of educating our students on it. And then next year, we can add it to the handbook in any way you like. We can do it now if you want, but I'm just telling you my concern.
So the other concern that this raises in my mind is because this affects incorporating staff into the bullying, even though it's following Mass General Law, does affect our Unit A individuals.
But it's not new. It's already been in our policy.
How do you mean by affecting Unit A? If there's a
Well-
bullying complaint of a staff member, we still fully investigate.
Right,
And they're
but
told.
then- So we're adding that word in here.
We're not adding it. It's
already-
in
it's
the
already
bullying
there.
handbook, it's in the bullying policy.
It's just not in
In
the.
the
It's just not in
handbook.
the student handbook,
So
that word.
We're
Which-
making sure everything's aligned.
But the law and the requirement has been there for
So it's
15,
already,
I
so
mean,
it's
5
in-
years.
It's
It's in the-
already in our
Bullying prevention and intervention
in
plan.
our school committee policies,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
So it's not a new policy.
That's exactly what I'm
So
saying.
you
It's just
extracted
moving it.
from one to the
They
other.
want it in the parent-student handbook.
Okay.
And then I promise, like, for the fall, you tell me what you want, well, you tell the principals, because it's their job. I just, again, get a little anxious with the audit of, if they give me language, I feel pretty strongly that I don't want to.
Yeah, we don't want to change Mass General Law. Mass General Law is written a
And I
certain
don't want
way.
to do a corrective action plan.
Yeah,
if we
no,
can avoid it.
We're not going to change Mass
I'm
General
also
Law.
thinking like in the back of that like big book that we have on all this, like, you know, if it actually like declares like what staff is, because it says as defined as staff, that may actually be laid out there, and then that's just a piece for us to just like share.
Right,
like,
put
you
it-
know,
yes.
according to that definition.
That's-
And that's, I think, where,
Yeah, we're all like leaning.
I think that's kind of what we're all trying to say. It's just,
I agree completely.
I don't
Just
care
a
how
clarification.
yeah,
it gets
we just want it
conveyed.
clear.
Yeah.
I just want it to be clear, because obviously our student representative here
Yes.
is saying that, well, it's not really clear from his perspective, of
Yeah.
what he's heard from students.
Yep.
And that's my sense also.
I agree.
that it's
Completely.
not clear that, one, it's not clear to me that all of our non-academic individuals
Mhm.
are following that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to say I would like it to be a little bit more clear, because I know last year, me and a few other individuals on a certain sports team had an issue with one of the coaches, and we were unsure of the direction to bring it because there was no clear definition in the student handbook, which I did read to try and figure it out.
And so from my perspective, waiting till next year
Yeah.
Might be waiting too long.
is waiting too long.
Yeah.
Why not, if we think that there's an issue, why not address it now?
We did bring up that also in the subcommittee with the superintendent evaluation. That's why I'm in the packet on one of the last pages. I think it talked about that,
Yeah.
because that was our concern. with even our DEIB work and other stuff outside of bullying, is making sure that everyone that is staff or faculty is taking in part with those initiatives that we're also implementing.
So then we're going to add including
Can we?
coaches?
Okay, can we, is it possible for us to approve this pending Sarah's approval on the definition, expanding that definition?
I would prefer you just make a decision either way, because I just want to upload it.
Okay.
It's probably going to be fine. I will always wear a legal hat over everything else, because that's
Yes.
what I'm paid to do. So however you do it, I will make it work. But I guess my bigger concern, Andrew, for you is, what are we not doing? Because you can put things anywhere. It's in the bullying prevention plan.
Yeah.
And that, so how are we not communicating that to you guys? Because that's good.
The definition of staff is in the, yes, okay.
Yes, but it doesn't even matter. If you guys don't know what to do when you're in a situation where you're stuck, that is not something I sleep.
That I think is a slightly different conversation, like I'd like to get through, I think this, I think that is a very valid point, and we do need to maybe revisit that, and maybe that's something we put on the agenda for a joint meeting, and you and the student advisory committee
Just
maybe
ask
discuss
people
some of that
yeah.
and see where you're all thinking. I think right now, just for the sake of time, if we stay with what
Yes.
is at hand right now, and just.
With that being said, though, like, Andrew, if you probably communicate to like other student athletes, like that,
Yeah,
they can communicate to the superintendent. I'm sure is always receptive, or to their principal.
Yeah.
And like, you know, they're not like, because I know it's a different interaction, coach to student, and like you may not be clear of like where that line is. And whenever you like it's questionable, like seek an adult, like another adult that you trust. Yeah,
definitely.
But Hope's conversation, or Dr. Hanscom's conversation about how to disseminate that information, I think
is super valuable.
It's very important
Yeah.
and very, definitely something we can all talk about, but I just think for now.
Yeah, so the
let's-
student advisory committee meets next, the
Friday.
24th? No, not that
Oh,
group.
that one.
This group.
The joint.
And it can easily be a communication that goes to all students that says,
just like
here's our expectations for coaches, and here's what you do if you're struggling or having a whatever, and this is sort of
Maybe
who
not
you
even
talk
just
to.
that specific.
Yeah,
Maybe
I was gonna
it's-
say.
I think we need to broaden it,
Yes.
but again,
Any thoughts?
conversation, we
Any
can
thoughts?
discuss
Yeah.
that
Okay.
later. So back to these changes, the gist of it is these recommendations came from the auditor, who will be here in person. If these changes are not implemented by the time they are here in person, we might not get the approval. These are what they have recommended, which is strictly aligning with the policies and Mass General laws that are already approved and in place, but just making sure that all of our documentation across the board is the same.
And that the handbooks include these things.
Yes. Okay. So we have a motion, correct, Sherry? And we have a second. Any further discussion? We have Dawn's notes on the definition, which we can, again, discuss, but any further discussion, comments, concerns, questions? Okay, hearing none, I'll call to vote. Dan?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
Matt?
yes.
And I also am a yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay.
Sherry, do you need these back for your packet?
Okay, up next we have the mid-cycle update of our school committee goals. Oh, I'm sorry, superintendent goals.
Right.
Sorry, I jumped ahead again.
So I don't know if you have a preference for how I do this. You do have it electronically. I did try to include on the right side of your packet or folder handouts, and they're labeled. So the first one, A, is the superintendent rubric, and so you can go through there. Other things are links to websites. But just quickly, there's 3 goal areas that I have. I have district improvement goal, the initiatives under that. So the goal is to support, monitor, and evaluate year 3 of the implementation of our plan for success. So all of the initiatives that we chose to focus on for school year 23-24 are listed on the left. And then evidence of implementation is listed on the right of each of that chart. The second goal, we can go back to them, but the second goal, so the district improvement goal has quite a few initiatives on it. The second goal is the student learning goal. For school year 23-24, in collaboration with district and school leaders, I will support the creation of school and classroom environments in which all students and staff are able to feel safe, supported, and connected. I will ensure that resources are allocated appropriately to support the goal. So one of the action steps is to provide SEL and DEI professional development and collect evidence of impact and implementation. So you see some information there of progress. Recommendations from the subcommittee was to ensure the coaches, like we just talked about, receive SEL and DEI professional development. SEL is social emotional learning. And then teach students about the origins of hate speech and the meanings of hate words. Continuing on the student learning goal, there is several other action steps. Facilitate the Superintendent Student Advisory Council as a way to increase student voice and decision-making, learning from the Student Advisory Committee to the school committee, analyzing staff models and the use of resources to maximize environments for all students. We did share a handout last week. I think it's in your folder again as well. Participate in leadership book study. That's actually just getting off the ground now. Anyway. Attend and facilitate the quarterly partnership meetings with the tribe. Monitor implementation and impact of the MMHS cell phone policy and Chromebook only policy. And there are some notes there. Support and monitor each school's No Place for Hate plans, initiatives, and action steps. We are making progress on those as well. The final goal is the professional practice goal, which is in collaboration with district and school leaders, I will collect and analyze student participation data and expand district-wide systems to ensure all students, especially those from historically marginalized groups, can access the entire scope of opportunities and offerings. And so collect and analyze student participation data in the following. And so you have a document there that's linked. Oh, actually, I think it was printed. Oh, no, it's a link. That's the spreadsheet, but the MPS DEI letter E that's in your folders does show participation just by numbers. It doesn't give you any of the analysis yet. That is a still to do piece in terms of male, female, all of those areas to look at: gender, race, ethnicity, language, low income, high needs, length of time enrolled in Mashpee, their attendance, academic performance. Obviously, the data analyst position that we are hopeful to get would be very helpful with digging down into this data. Identify barriers to student participation. There are some of the evidence of progress, and I definitely like trying to get at whether some students don't participate because they have to work or they have to watch their younger siblings in terms of some of those after-school offerings. And then make recommendations and develop action steps based on the data collected. You know, one of the changes this year is that program of studies during the school day that is very student-focused, student-centered. Our past program of studies, generally, the bulk of people who come to that event are the parents of sixth graders who are interested. And so this is one way to generate greater interest and knowledge of, on the part of our current students with what's available, and the teachers having an opportunity to promote their offerings. I do think we need to do better communication. It was in both of those. I don't think we do enough positive messaging from staff and parent guardians to students. It's kind of like what Hope talked about, where changing the course selection process where it was not a teacher voice first is very powerful. But I don't think we do enough of that. You should take this. I think you could be great at this. Like, kids, they all need that stroking. They need to be asked, like, hey, have you thought about doing this? And they're like, oh, they're asking me to do it. I should do it. I'm speaking from my own son's experiences. They like to be asked. Anyway, and then better communication with our students in regards to available opportunities. Don't assume that the email is the way, or however, I mean, the kids say Instagram is good, but I think we have plenty of opportunities to be more personal with our communication. But I am open to more specific questions if you would like to ask them.
Have we resolved the issue in regard to a late bus for students?
No, we have not. We have not.
Is there a
What's,
We don't have a driver.
and obviously we contract with the collaborative on that. Have we talked about incentivizing?
Well, it
That
gets a little
particular-
glitchy if you, because to incentivize that run,
Yes.
you have to kind of do it for all of them, like it's,
We can't get,
we have, so we have late bus runs at these two schools because it's so much later in the day.
right.
The problem for us is our buses are running here at the normal time when we need the late bus at the high school. I don't know if we can contract, I mean, I know you've looked at other non-collaborative options.
They're doing our athletics.
Would does the collaborative have, like, are they able to put out the need for a driver? Are they able to?
They're like every meeting I've been going to, they've been advertising and we're actually doing better than a lot of the other districts, like on normal runs, let alone like extra runs.
But I guess my point, what I'm trying to ask, I guess, is say an elementary, like say one of the drivers who's a normal driver for Falmouth, they finish in time. Like, would they want to come apply and do the late bus run, like, and pick up kind of an extra shift? Like, I mean,
It's open. They're able to do that. There's just.
but has that
no
been like vocalized? You know what I mean? Like, has the collaborative said, hey, if you're a driver in this and you're already trained?
I mean, I don't know if word for word if that's been said,
No,
but it's open. So we have drivers who do our athletic trips that are from other districts. We have spare drivers who typically do down Lower Cape that will help us if we need a driver, a substitute for that day. Mashpee overall, for the collaborative transportation, is in a very good position where we haven't had to consolidate and we haven't lost the ability to provide transportation to all students. It is really that high school run, that after school high school run where we have the later start time that runs into our elementary time, and we do have a full fleet out for the elementary. If we do have a driver that, there are some who are not wanting to do big bus runs anymore, who might want to come back just for that, that's an option, but at this point, they don't have an employee that would like to do that or make that commitment, which is the hard part. In past, we've had conversations about giving a premium to that run. There's not a strong appetite for that. We meet as business managers again on Friday, and I can bring that up again.
Because I know they do, over on the islands, they pay a premium, right? Because of lack of qualified drivers. So I'm not sure why we couldn't do the same here.
I can bring that up.
We could also look at, so after-school things, like if it's after-school for extra help, things generally end at 3:30 at the high school, based on when the teachers are done. If we were able to provide supervision, maybe kids are doing homework and it was a later, so it would have to almost be whenever a run was done here, that's not the two late buses for here, but if there were a run,
The third quickest run.
could go there, but we'd have to make sure that there was a staff member to supervise anyone that could then stay. They'd have to understand, maybe we could do snacks and whatever, but then they would take a bus home more like the, what time would that be, like 4:15 maybe?
And I can give that scenario to the collaborative. I
Yeah,
know,
see what,
like,
if there's anyone interested.
I will do that.
Okay.
For instance, we've said that we'd love a third elementary run because in the beginning of the year, especially, the kids get home later than we'd really like. And they, again, don't have that third driver because at that point they're driving into 6 p.m. But I will ask, I would see if there is anyone.
I mean, I know we're doing all we can, and I don't question that. I do know, maybe, I don't want the perception of the families to be that we are not aware and
100%.
trying. We are. It's a problem
Very frustrating.
everybody's facing, like Matt said,
Yeah.
so, you know.
Yeah, no, it's like, yeah, every time we go through the meeting, like, yeah, when I see the numbers, like, I see deficits in like even just normal runs, let alone like having an activity bus, but like, so like, yeah, in all the conversations it's been, we're in a very solid position.
I guess my concern, and, you know, forgive me, Donna, for stealing your concern too, but, or sharing it really, but it's the high school, I feel it's critical. I have very strong feelings about the high school having a late bus. I mean, it's great we offer it at the elementary schools, but I really have very strong feelings about the high school.
We've talked about so if you look at the elementary runs, are there two that potentially could be combined into one, which would free up the bus at 3:35 to be able to address the high school late run? I don't know about that either.
Right.
Since so many people drive their kids, there's got to be some empty buses out there.
Right. Our biggest, like, our opportunity to do that is really with a high school run. But we have so many elementary age kids who do take the bus because of the timing of it. Again, all valued options, and then I'll bring to the collaborative to see if they'll work with us to come up with some kind of creative solution. It is a constant conversation though, so I want you to know as a committee that we are looking to, we really are.
Again, shameless plug. If you would like a little part-time gig.
That's right. We
Please
have
apply.
great children.
We pay for training, right? We've got the budget for training. You'll get paid. We have the bus.
Andrew's gonna apply.
There you go, Andrew.
You would be great.
I know you would.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on the superintendent's goals? Because now we will move on to the school committee's goals. Where is that?
Yeah, Jiva can go.
Steve, that's in the folder. And
Yours is in the pack.
in the packet.
It's
Okay.
page 19,
Okay.
19, 20, and 21. Oh, I did want to highlight before we leave my part was you'd be happy to know that one of our employees, one of our new EL teachers is going to be offering a 10-week class for staff on Brazilian Portuguese conversation lessons. So I ensured that Hope made it work for my schedule, and
She
we're
did.
very excited.
Literally,
I did.
the teacher
No.
was like, I'm like, when's works for you? And she said, well, you tell me. And then Patty calls and she's like, it's gotta work on my calendar. So I looked it up.
Pick the dates. I want to do this, so.
All right.
But that's exciting.
Excellent. Does everybody have what they need? I have.
Yeah, you have this one.
I don't know
Yeah,
if
the
Brian,
red's,
Brian, you have
the
it?
bomb's mostly there.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're good? All right. Okay, so, this is our progress update. Looks like the last outreach working, so the outreach working group met on September 18th. We've had the first of our school committee, we kind of talked about some of this before, but it looks like the red comments are.
Yeah, like I put completed next to things that you are done, and then other things are coming.
Thank you, everyone, for getting your biographies in.
The only thing I'm thinking of, like, one that's in the red, I see like where we have the superintendent evaluation, but also the student advisory committee. I don't know if that's something like, Andrew.
I was actually just gonna say that could I attend that?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
because I think that'd be more beneficial, because it'd be kind of like odd to be like, you know, and let me tell you all about the student advisory.
Yeah.
That I'm not necessarily like.
I think in my
Oh, the
calendar,
April 8th.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think in my calendar, I already had me as attending,
Yes.
Okay, good.
so.
Like one way or
definitely
another,
be
you're like, I'll be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have the blank on June 10th because that's after the election, correct?
I guess.
I'm assuming that's what the blank is. I believe that's what that's for. Okay. The link has been going out. I guess I did have a question. Has anybody heard any feedback about, I haven't really heard too much about including the agenda in the Friday communication, but has anybody heard any positive or negative or neutral feedback on providing that information ahead of the meeting in the superintendent's? Okay, just curious.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of actively start asking, you know what I mean?
No. I was just curious.
I mean, it might reflect when the survey goes out, if they understand the role of the school committee better,
Yeah.
maybe.
But sometimes, like we were just talking even with like students, like with like other people we interact with, and like, you know, oh, hey, did you get those? Oh, yeah, did you notice I just got the, you know what I mean? Like, you know, just
Yeah.
seeing if people are catching that. Yeah.
And my other question, Andrew, with the Mashpee Minute, I know we're still kind of getting wheels turning, and I think, you know, as, you know, like what we talked about tonight, maybe,
Yeah.
are you able to get the space? Have you been putting in for time with the Mashpee Minute, or someone
I'll
from?
have to check with one of our members, Eve Mann was
Yep.
supposed to do that, so I'll check with her.
I was
She
just
was
wondering.
in one. I remember she talked
Yeah,
all
I
about
think
the
so.
student advisory
Yeah.
committee.
Yeah, I guess I'm just wondering, like, do you think it would be beneficial for you to provide updates, like, you know, with explaining maybe, or doing a recap of, here's things us students might want
The
to.
bullying thing, that'd be
But
awesome.
that's kind of where I'm
Yeah.
going with it, is like,
It's not.
do you have like a standing, I know you have to submit the form, like, I understand the format of the Mashpee Minute is like, you submit the form
Yeah.
as a club president or advisor, whatever. And then they decide, or you automatically put
I've
on
never
it?
had any issues
Okay.
like with being rejected in
I think we can
any of
also
my
just
clubs.
talk to this person.
But we were
I also know someone who's.
All right, I was gonna say.
She did
Yeah.
post last Friday.
Yeah,
That's
so I
right,
mean-
she might have an
Like, we got two parents of Mashpee Minute kids here.
Yeah.
I guess I'm just trying to go the official route.
I know,
of
you're very good.
Explaining it for those who might not know the process. I guess my thought is, do you think it would be beneficial to have, because there are things on here, like, talking about the VEX robotics, you know, maybe bringing up your own recap in your own words of what you think the student body might find important from our meetings.
That's what I'm planning on doing going forward
Okay.
with the website. 'Cause the website, I plan to have stuff that students and adults, parents,
Yep.
community members would be interested in, and then condensing that down to a student version for the Mashpee Minute. And then I was also looking at the Builders Club, I know does a daily announcement.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I can get on that, but I was
Okay.
gonna email them, because I know I think it's always on in the library. I know a lot of teachers play it in homeroom, so I was gonna see about getting onto that.
Yeah, obviously, you know what's gonna work best.
Yeah.
We're not in the building and you are, so that's why I was just asking the question. Like,
I appreciate it.
any other questions or comments on our goals update?
I think in regards to, I think it's goal number 2, the action steps, item 5. I know it's distribute a link to each meeting's agenda in the packets to the stakeholders in advance of each meeting, which we do that. But just tying back to, Dan had brought up a good point in our subcommittee for the superintendent evaluation. And then Superintendent DeBoer did send out like kind of like a link to make it like a user-friendly page for the school committee to put all of that stuff in one central location. We had talked about SharePoint and stuff like that as well. So I just don't know if that's something that, you know, because it isn't like in a draft form, if that's something for just us in particularly, or if that would be something good to also put on the website, because then you have access to all of that stuff, which I'm pretty sure is already there, but maybe just make sure that the website's more user-friendly, I guess.
So the Google site that I shared with you, we could make it public, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, if the committee would feel comfortable with that, or looking at the website, I think, to see how we can better interact.
I mean, we
share
can
some
put
of that information.
a thing there and it would just link right in there. Yeah, there's nothing, I mean, it's public information, so, right, anybody could ask for it anyway, so, yeah, that's a good idea.
And the format was nice, like, I mean, it was nice and consolidated, like, everything's like right there.
Well, if you think of other things you want in there,
Yeah.
like, I might have missed a few things. I'll put it on there. Soon.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Any other questions, comments? All right. Next Wednesday, we have lots of meetings in January, so
Every Wednesday this month.
seems so.
And a Monday for 2 people.
So next Wednesday, we have the full committee, student advisory committee meeting, agenda development. Andrew, you know, I think Superintendent DeBoer and I talked about maybe including you in our, like, agenda meeting so that you can participate in, like, setting the agenda and bring, you know, obviously, whatever items.
I would definitely appreciate that.
Okay, so, if you want to talk with the student advisory committee about, you know, some of the things we talked about, like the bullying policy, the, I believe the survey, we asked you to
Yeah.
kind of take a pass at that, correct, I think?
Yeah.
The
The
which survey?
The annual survey, I can give you the chart again. It
Looking
has,
at it and just.
looking at the questions that we're proposing for 24.
Oh yeah,
giving
we
us-
did that. I need
Yeah.
to find the notes for that, but we
Yeah.
did do.
Okay.
Okay, so then like, things like that, that
Yeah.
you might want to bring back and we can have the bigger discussion together and we'll work on the agenda. I think some of what I've heard from committee members and chime in, anyone, is that, you know, we'd like to kind of make it, those meetings, we want your student advisory committee's agenda to be a bit more prevalent,
Yeah.
because that's the chance, I mean, you're at our table every meeting anyway, but that's the chance for all of you to have that voice at the table.
Yeah.
And we kind of want to, you know, we've
Like
had a couple
next
meetings
Monday.
now, we're starting to understand the rules here. You know, we want to kind of bump it up a little bit and
Yeah.
make sure that your agenda is kind of the highlight as opposed, because we have our agendas, but we want to make sure your agendas are also incorporated, so.
Okay.
So Superintendent DeBoer will probably send out that, we do it by Zoom now, so.
We do, we just have to have that agenda by Friday of
Yes.
this week, Monday.
Do you have like a day do you do it? Because Fridays
So-
and Mondays I'm not going to be in school because of an internship for School of Career.
Oh. Well, we've just recently switched to a nighttime Zoom.
Yes.
Okay.
That works, so maybe you'd be able to join that. I'm not sure where
We
next
haven't,
Monday,
yeah.
we have the two-member Zoom,
Mhm.
so I don't know.
We
Yeah.
can talk after, I guess, and try to figure that out, but, Tom?
Just a couple ideas personally, that I would be interested in hearing from the advisory committee in regard to, it's been, 6 months now with a new food services director. Better, worse, about the same?
Yeah.
Which, you know, I'd like to hear, would appreciate feedback. The other one, which I believe is still, that I would like to hear feedback on is, obviously in regard to the cell phone policy, how that's working from a student perspective.
Can you
good,
add personal
bad.
computers as well?
Oh, yeah, and personal computers.
You guys thought
Just
that.
because I heard some things this week that I went, huh, interesting.
Yeah, so, just some ideas in regard to agenda items that you might want to think about.
Yeah, I will definitely have to filter the cell phone and on devices comments a little bit, but I can definitely collect them from the student body.
But again,
Just some ideas.
yeah,
Filter. That's a good
anybody
word.
else have anything they'd like the student advice to focus on? I mean, we've given a couple, but if you guys have anything
Yeah,
else
I'm
you'd like?
totally open to suggestions, and if you need my email, if you have any ideas later, I can get that to you.
I think just some of the stuff back to the surveys and the stuff that we're asking for, getting that student input and perspective on, you know, what are the obstacles and challenges that you face, you know, whether it is after school busing, but more, you know, work committed or personal commitments as well.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, we kind of talked, we do have Monday, we have the next Zoom with school committee members to learn all about the fiscal year 2025 budget and the 2024 family opinion, student opinion survey. So tune in on Monday night.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just on that, I know the first time that we did it, this would be our second one, but just moving forward, I feel like we had not so much like downtime, I would say, but maybe it would be in our best interest to kind of do like announcements or go through maybe something in the beginning, not so much like a script to say, well, we get the updates of current events and stuff, but I think the IEP stuff is like really important to like maybe, say, hey, in January, this is our next meeting. And I don't think it has to be like everything that's the events, but maybe some things that we feel are important to us, the family and the community should also be, kind of aware of as well.
That's a great suggestion. I like that suggestion very much. Thank you. All right. And then just a reminder, kind of short notice, and I know some of the other school committee members that I speak with on the Cape and in Division 7 have expressed a little bit of frustration at the short notice for this, but the annual legislative breakfast, which typically was in February, has been moved to January 26th. This year it will be in person for the first time in quite a few years at Cape Cod Tech on, I said Friday, January 26th from 9:30 to 11:30 a.m. It appears that MASC is not necessarily going to have too much input, and it's really just going to be kind of the collaborative running at this time, from my understanding. You should have all gotten the email with the RSVP, so make sure if you are interested in attending that you RSVP. They are helpful because you do get to get the ear of our legislators to talk about items that really affect the Cape and Islands school districts. I know housing is something that's going to be discussed, and funding, the budgets and all of that. But again, it's kind of less than a 10-day turnaround for RSVPs on that, and it is a Friday. So again, if you can make it, please feel free to. I highly recommend them.
Can I just share too, the Cape and Island superintendents met, maybe it was last week, and wanting to be as productive, because we have gone to those before, and there is a subcommittee working on it, but we felt strongly about each district being able to share, without names, a narrative, because our issue is that we have become the everything. And when we then request support or send a student for an emergency evaluation or this or that, often they're like, well, we don't have the space, or they go and they send the student back the next day without having communicated or really helped the student. So at least I was advocating that we need more funding for all of the supporting resources in the community, because we do so much, but then we have to go to the next step where, there needs to be sort of an emergency evaluation or, hospitalization, and they don't have a bed. It's really hard, and it can be very time consuming and resource heavy for the district with not the outcome we're seeking, because they're not funded or resourced well enough to, I don't know. That's something, housing we're making progress, I think.
Yeah, no, it's
Across the
going to be
Cape, but
all. I know that was something
It tends to be like that big up here conversation that doesn't get anywhere.
But I also understand the format will be slightly different. I believe they will, in the past, because it's been online, there's been breakout sessions. From my understanding, and I don't know, Matt, the collaborative meetings, if they've talked too much about it, but it will be more like table work as opposed to, they might not necessarily let you have that time with your representative. It was a little unclear with the change to it all, but that's happening. So if you are interested in going, please RSVP to the email that is in. Yes, Andrew.
Would I be expected to go to that breakfast?
I don't know that student reps go to that
Okay,
typically.
I just want to make sure.
I know that recently student reps did, some of them I saw were testifying on Beacon Hill about different policies.
Yeah.
So I saw that on the Instagram feed that they had, I think it was last week. But I don't think you need to be at this one. Obviously, if you wanted as a student advisory committee to write to any of our reps, you are always welcome to do so. But
I was just wondering and double checking.
Well, if you're curious and you would like to, and it doesn't impact you, I can always reach out and say, is this okay?
The thing is, I didn't think I was able to go to it with my schedule.
Right.
So
That's fine.
I know.
I know.
I do need your. You're fine. You're fine.
Oh, that's right. You do. That's right.
You're good. But if anybody else from the student advisory committee was interested, again, because you're graduating and whoever's gonna
If anyone's interested, I'll reach out.
Yes.
Thank you.
So just a curious question. So this is in Wellfleet this time versus.
Harwich.
Or Harwich, I'm sorry. In Harwich versus, close. Versus here in Barnstable. Why the location change? Do you know?
Believe they're doing breakfast.
I didn't get anything other than they're doing a breakfast and that it was gonna be on that day.
So
Because
the,
I think they want to show off the new school too.
that's it.
Is it- That's kind of what I figured.
Yeah. It's a nice place to be.
So, okay, next we just have, hopefully what is a quick vote to,
2 quick votes.
appoint, Dr. Gregory Parkinson for an additional year, as our district pediatrician, or our school physician consultant, I'm sorry. We have the memo in front of us with the request.
So FY '24 was already part of his previous contract. I just repeated that for you to reference, and the compensation is there for FY '25.
And he was invaluable, in my opinion, during COVID.
We're very
so
lucky to have
We
him.
were very lucky with his knowledge and information, so
And he still provides really good input.
I'm sure he does.
Yeah.
So, that being said, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve this appointment for additional year.
Thank you, Dan, and a second.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. Dan?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
I also am a yes. Thank you, Dr. Parkinson. Okay.
I will tell him tomorrow.
All right, and now we have a vote on an MOU for foster care transportation.
It's going to be Ms. Lopes.
Yes, so as a handout today, you had FAQs and then also a draft MOU. Starting in 2019, the state started reimbursing school districts for foster care transportation. It is reported separately on the end of year report. Since 2019, Mashpee has not reported any expenditures on that line, but in FY23 we did. The partial reimbursement is approximately 20%. It's very small dollars, but once we approve this MOU, it goes on forever. So we always have the opportunity to reimburse that about 20%. The thing about this MOU is that it has to go in front of town meeting and be voted on by the taxpayers. So it will, we've talked to the town manager, and if we have a draft article by the deadline, he will put it on. But he is asking the board to vote in support of it. Again, it's very small dollars. We will miss out on FY23's reimbursement. But going forward, if we have anything in that line, we can claim it once a year in March. And that will be my office claiming those reimbursements. The money will go to the town, just like the homeless reimbursement. So unfortunately, the school district will not see it, but the town's general fund will collect it, I believe. Or actually, I'm sorry, I think they have a separate fund for it.
And who will be drafting the warrant article?
I am asking my peers across the state for drafts.
And when's the deadline for?
February 12th, I believe.
12th, I think he said.
Oh, wow.
And he will bring it to council, town council, and they'll review it.
Attorney Costello is a very busy man right now. All right, okay, so, I will entertain a motion to approve the MOU for foster care transportation claiming.
Motion.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Okay, I've got Matt for the second. And discussion.
I guess, just procedurally, will this be something that would have to go through our legal counsel as well as town legal counsel?
They were just going to look at the warrant article the town's legal counsel, but I can submit all of this to Sarah. This was provided to us through DESE. So this is the information that they're working with a third-party vendor who's come up with this template. A lot of regional districts had signed on to it initially in 2019 because they could sign off on it and didn't have to go to town meeting. Municipalities in general have been a little bit slower to adopt it because it has to go in front of town meeting.
I would just feel a little bit more comfortable if we got advice from our own legal counsel too before, town council also reviews it.
I think that is wise.
In regard to the warrant article.
In regards to, I feel like the substance
MOU.
of it too, and just in general. I mean, anytime, like just from the tribal perspective, if we're approving an MOU, it kind of has to go through our general counsel and just make sure we have the checks and balances. I mean, this is the first time we're kind of seeing the document too, so
Yes.
it's like a lot to take in. I mean, I trust that we've done our due diligence, but I just want to make sure we.
So would you like to withdraw your motion, or? would
No,
you-
I'm fine with it. Just making sure that we follow up
So,
offline.
okay.
Wow.
Well, if we vote on your amendment, then this will just go,
I don't think it was an amendment. It was just.
I'm sorry, not amendment.
It was
If you vote
just-
on your motion,
yeah, it was
it'll
just-
just go through, won't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, but it has to come back, I think, for like the town article, like the warrant, if we're gonna approve it as a board, like I'd like to get that in time.
We'll make sure,
Get
yeah,
back
I mean,
from
I don't know
Sarah
if you can
or-
say,
Yeah.
subject to review by,
If the attorney comes back with something, we can put it on the February
It's 7th, right? So it's
7th.
before it's
school
due.
committee meeting as a
So
revote,
would
if she
this-
says, oh, whatever.
Would this be a school committee warrant article or a select board?
I don't know the answer to that question. I'll look into it. I believe, actually, hold on. Let me look at the FAQ.
I mean, I would enjoy, well, not enjoy, but I would prefer to have the select board recommend, like, if we claim it as our article, I would like the select board's recommendation.
They have to approve it,
Well, they have to vote on it anyway.
right? And it's just to authorize us to enter into the agreement.
Right,
Yes,
so it'd be on our article.
Yes.
I'll confirm that.
So, to your point, legal counsel would have to draft and provide us with the article.
Yeah. And we'd have to vote on that before submitting it in
Yeah.
February?
The article, yes.
Yeah, okay.
So right now, we're voting on the MOU
Yeah.
as presented.
Mhm.
We'll ask legal counsel to look at it. Warrant article will be drafted. We'll vote on that. That gets submitted.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
I would assume
like a
that
plan.
they have
Yeah,
draft warrant articles that they've done for other schools, so.
yeah. I'm sure Sarah's seen this too, so I
Right,
feel a little bit more comfortable knowing that we have people to go to and talk
Yes.
to say,
100%.
hey, I have a question about this, in here.
And right now, again, it's very small dollars, but it opens us up to getting reimbursed maybe in the future. 1 year, we have an off year and it's gonna be much higher.
Maybe they have the percentage.
Exactly. Like homeless transportation percentage was at 88% last year. So, again, we don't see it coming back to the school district necessarily, but it does go to the town.
I'd rather not leave money on the table if we're
Exactly.
eligible for it, so
Yeah.
that's my thought.
This doesn't create any service expectations, does it?
We're already obligated to transport,
So nothing new.
nothing new.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call to vote. Dan?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
yes.
And I also am a yes. Thank you. Are there any items the chair did not reasonably know in advance? Hearing none. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair, I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
Thank you. Dan?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Dawn? Matt? Yes. I am a yes. 8:50.